Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to RSBN Live. I'm Matthew Alvarez. Beautiful look there on Capitol Hill and, of course, 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. We're about 58 minutes away from already a changing of the guard. But then, 3 o'clock, we'll have President Trump making that announcement from the White House. So looking forward to that. Robert McNeely, again, will be in at 2. But until then, we have a number of things to get to as well, including the GOP press conference, as today is day 16 of that Democrat government shutdown. Again, today's event, all about that 3 o'clock announcement from President Trump. Meantime, tomorrow, the president is expected to meet with the Ukrainian president, Vladimir Zelensky, at the White House. You can catch that coverage, of course, right here on RSBN Live. Speaking of the White House, President Trump had a few choice words yesterday when it comes to those who have broken the law and attacked the president and his family and the American people through the weaponization of government over the years. So let's look at that 16-second soundbite from just yesterday.
These are sick, bad people, and don't tell me about us going after them. If anything, we've been very, very soft. I wouldn't be that soft, I'll tell you that. Thank you very much, everybody. Let's go.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And as many said on X, on Truth Social, online, all over the place, people were saying, well, that was quite the mic drop. President Trump showing that frustration with how things have been when it comes to the, some of the things going on with the prosecutions and the like. So we're going to monitor all of that as it develops here at the network. We're seeing that a report about John Bolton possibly being indicted sometime today. So we're just monitoring it all for you here at Right Side Broadcasting Network. Before we get to the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, in that press conference, as today is day 16 of that government shutdown, let's go to a couple of our great sponsors, including Monetary Gold. And we know that two banks, unfortunately, have already failed in 2025. And with $37 trillion in national debt, Monetary Gold says more failures, unfortunately, are on the way. And it's not fear-mongering, it's reality. The banking system is built on quicksand, and every new failure threatens depositors, retirement accounts, and pensions. And the government can't bail out everyone. So when confidence collapses, so does the system. So Monetary Gold tells us not to get trapped holding worthless paper, but instead call that number you see on your screen, 888-617-7994 today, or visit rsbnforthegold.com and secure your wealth with real assets that don't depend on anybody else. Great spot there, Monetary Gold. rsbnforthegold.com. Let's also go to All Family Pharmacy. Every year, of course, it's the same story. Someone in the family, they start coughing. You think it's just a little cold, and then suddenly half the house is sick. And this year, we're already seeing it. Flu cases are climbing fast right now. And yes, COVID's creeping back a bit too. So the problem is when everyone starts getting sick at once, pharmacies and those clinics, they get slammed. So you can't find what you actually need. That's why it pays to be prepared before it hits your home. If you're the kind of person who likes to plan ahead and keep your family protected, All Family Pharmacy is here to help. You can order what you and your family might need in advance, so it's ready when you need it most. So they have these antibiotics to have on hand for bacterial infections and also Tamiflu for the flu and ivermectin for parasites and other off-label uses. They also have hydroxychloroquine. There are more than 200 medications to choose from, and every order is reviewed by a licensed doctor and ships right to your door. No insurance or extra appointments needed. You don't have to wait. All you have to do is go to allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. Get 10% off with that RSBN10 promo code, and you can get your medicine cabinet ready today. Great sponsors there, Monetary Gold and All Family Pharmacy, as we are 6 minutes after 1 o'clock, Thursday, October 16th. 10-16-25. Thanks so much for joining us live. Let's go now to Capitol Hill. We saw the beautiful images from Capitol Hill just moments ago, and also the White House, looking like a nice sunny day there on this Thursday. A lot of news going on, as you guys know, as we are day 16 into this government shutdown. Let's go to the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, who has actually held 16 press conferences in a row. And it looks like we're going to have 17 because the Senate did not pass that continuing resolution. So let's go to the Speaker of the House on Capitol Hill from moments ago.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to day 16 of the Democrat shutdown. The Schumer shutdown is very real and very painful for real Americans. We're going to share a little bit about that situation with you this morning, and then get an update on one specific segment regarding Homeland Security and what that's doing for the security of our country. If you're keeping count, 9 times the Senate Democrats have voted to keep the government closed. All the House Democrats except one voted September 19th to shut it down. So this is 10 total times now that Democrats in Congress have voted to close the government. And we know what that means for real people. We know what it means for our troops and our Border Patrol agents and TSA agents and air traffic controllers and everybody who relies upon services around the country. It's very real. And so today marks yet another day of American families feeling the very real personal and economic strain of this reckless decision that our Democrat colleagues keep making. They want the United States government to remain closed, and they seem not to care about the pain that it's causing. They have offered no plan. They have offered no strategy. They have offered no common sense path forward for ending this situation. And so many of you have asked all of us, how will it end? We have no idea. It's up to the Democrats, and they have to decide it. And judging by their outrageous behavior, the Democrats appear perfectly happy to keep the political theater going while real people suffer. And that's why House Republicans made the responsible decision for our members to spend this week in their districts working for the people. They're helping their constituents. They're helping the American people navigate the mess that the Democrats have created. Staying back to work with our constituents was a decision that we made very thoughtfully, and we made collectively as a group, House Republicans. We have so much of that work to do. That's not some talking point. It's not some strategic tactic. We made that decision out of urgent necessity. So I want to highlight here just this morning, just very briefly, just a couple of examples, a small sample of some of the very important work that House Republicans are doing on the ground right now to help Americans through this difficult time. In the state of Michigan, for example, our members are sitting down with veterans, men and women who risked their lives for our country, and they're struggling now because the services they depend on, health services, for example, have come to a halt thanks to the Schumer shutdown. So in Michigan, our Republicans from the House are there working through those situations. In Texas, many of our Republican colleagues have met with some of our brave Border Patrol agents down on that southern border who are still reporting for duty without a paycheck. In Montana, Congressman Ryan Zinke helped park rangers who are keeping the parks open as best they can for families and travelers, even as they themselves go without a paycheck. Across the Midwest, we have members who are meeting with local and regional airports to hear firsthand how furloughs and blocked paychecks there are hurting the people who keep our skies safe. Really important stuff. In rural communities around the country, Republicans are working hand in hand with their local hospitals to make sure that the $50 billion rural hospital fund that Republicans got signed into law in July 4th is accessed. It reaches the people who need it. And they're doing that work while the Democrats are demanding to kill that essential fund that is in their counterproposal for the CR, one of the many outrageous things they've claimed they want to do. And everywhere across America right now, we're helping small business owners and farmers and ranchers and service coordinators navigate frozen loans and delayed emergency funds and growing uncertainty about how to keep serving their communities. So all across the country, Republicans are dealing with the very real and painful consequences facing real Americans. Now, that's happening on the Republican side. And what's happening on the Democrat side? You can see it for yourself. Compare what I just told you with what they're doing. Look at their own behavior. Look at their actions. Don't listen to the words that people are saying. Look at what they're doing. Chuck Schumer and Democrats over the last 10 days, here's a small sample of their activity, okay? We've seen performative stunts and TikToks and photo shoots across every inch of this Capitol. We've seen Democrats actually toast themselves on the balcony of the DCCC last night, while their colleagues voted in the Senate to keep the government closed for the 10th time. We've seen not one but two failed publicity stunts right outside my own office, the latest of which ended in a congresswoman storming the entrance and berating a Capitol police officer who, by the way, is protecting her without pay. And last night, we even saw, I didn't see it, many of you saw it, CNN host the first socialist town hall where Bernie Sanders and AOC said the quiet parts out loud. They don't know what they want to end the shutdown. They couldn't provide a single viable solution for the mess that they themselves have gleefully created. And by the way, those are the real leaders of the Democrat Party. We all know it, AOC and Bernie. Good luck with that. And amid all that, Chuck Schumer is actually bragging that every day gets better for his party. As you know, that is his words, not ours. All this would be laughable if it didn't come at the cost of American families, and it really is deadly serious. If it were up to Republicans alone, we would not be in this mess. We'd be up here negotiating and debating openly and transparently on the issues impacting Americans' lives. But as I've said repeatedly, Democrats slammed the brakes on legislative business when they decided to shut down the government for their partisan political purposes. The progress we made on appropriations and the conversations that were underway on the COVID-era Obamacare subsidies and all those issues, all that sits at a standstill until Democrats reopen the government. As soon as 5 Senate Democrats come to their senses and break ranks and turn the lights back on, House Republicans are anxious to get back to legislative session and to pick up our unfinished business. We have a lot yet to do. Until then, I'll continue to share the facts from this podium every morning to try to get this message directly to the American people. Republicans will continue serving on the job in our communities on behalf of the American people that we represent. I'm going to conclude this morning by saying this again. There's an incredible contrast right now between the two parties that could not be more clear. As we say here every day, this is not.
All right, so it's 1:13 Eastern. Let's go now live outside the White House. You see there Carolyn Levitt walking over to the press.
Sure. He just put out a truth statement. If you haven't seen it yet, I encourage you to look at it. But I was just talking with the president and the Secretary of State and the Vice President, and it was a very good and productive call. It lasted more than 2 hours. There were various issues that were discussed. President Putin congratulated President Trump for solving the conflict in Israel and Gaza and bringing peace back to the Middle East. He also thanked the First Lady for her efforts to bring back children and save children in this brutal conflict. And the president feels like great progress was made on this call. They also agreed to have a high-level senior staff meeting convened as early as next week, which will then be followed by a meeting very likely between President Trump and President Putin as well. They talked about Budapest as being a location for that. So as you all know, President Zelensky is coming to the White House tomorrow, so these discussions will continue. And frankly, I think the president deserves great credit. He literally just got off of a trip to the Middle East where historic peace and accomplishments, seeing the hostages return out of Gaza. These are major foreign policy accomplishments that so many people around the world thought could never be achieved. And so I think the president deserves a great deal of credit for doing that, coming home, dealing with so many domestic issues, and then again hopping on yet another call with President Putin and hosting President Zelensky again at the White House tomorrow to try to move the ball forward in peace and end this conflict in Russia and Ukraine. So that's where we are.
Thank you. After their meeting in Alaska, the president was optimistic that he could get Zelensky and Putin together in a room. Does he still believe that he can get the two leaders together sometime soon?
I think he thinks it's possible, and he would, of course, love to see that happen. But right now, there were discussions and plans are now being made for the Russian side and our folks, led by Secretary of State Marco Rubio, to meet, and then for President Putin and President Trump to perhaps meet again. But I don't think the president has closed the door on that at all.
Caroline, you said in Hungary possibly when?
Well, this call literally just happened, so we will provide you with more details as soon as we can, I promise.
On that call, did Vladimir Putin commit to sitting down with President Trump and President Zelensky?
He committed to sitting down with President Trump, as President Trump's truth post put out for you.
And what do you say what it would take for him to be willing to sit down with Zelensky finally as well?
I don't want to get into that, but as I just said, the president and President Putin discussed meeting together in Budapest, and President Trump will talk about that opportunity with President Zelensky when he's here at the White House tomorrow.
Does Trump believe any conditions have changed to make a second meeting with Putin better, more successful than the Alaska meeting?
I think the president is always willing to take a chance at diplomacy. And this war, he has always said, is going to have to end at the negotiating table. And so he's, he never gives up, and he's willing to pursue it. And that's what you're hearing from the president today.
Caroline, Nicholas Maduro.
I have a question on the cartel. So yesterday we learned that at least the 5th strike on a boat off of the Venezuelan coast took place. We know that the Trump administration has previously said that they are in armed conflict with the people that the administration is striking. Who are these people? And don't you think not only the people, the American people, but lawmakers deserve to know who they are?
Narco terrorists who are trafficking drugs illegally to the United States of America. That's who we're in a conflict with. And the president's been very clear, and he's been very transparent about these strikes, releasing classified video, unclassifying that video, declassifying it rather for all of you to see, and to let the public and lawmakers know with each of these strikes. And there should be no surprise for this. The president campaigned on using every lever of power to go after the drug cartels who have been trafficking illicit poison into our country for far too long. And you heard the president speak about this yesterday. There was a question about why not just use the Coast Guard to grab these boats and grab the drugs on them. That's been going on for years and years, and the drug epidemic in this country has not gotten any better. The cartels have only gotten more powerful. So the president is taking these unprecedented steps, and it's making a real impact. We are seeing less boats with lots of drugs coming into the shores of the United States of America as a result of these successful strikes, and I think the American people can expect them to continue.
Caroline, Nicholas Maduro.
Change of leadership at the IRS, specifically putting some of Trump's main allies into leadership positions in the Criminal Investigations Division. There's reports that George Santos is on the list to be investigated. Is there anybody else that you know of that is being looked at or being mentioned of being looked at?
Not to my knowledge, no. You'll have to reach out to the Department of Treasury.
Nicholas Maduro. Does President Trump believe, Nicholas Maduro, the president of Venezuela, does President Trump believe his days are numbered there?
I think President Trump believes that Nicolas Maduro is an illegitimate president leading an illegitimate regime that has been trafficking drugs to the United States of America for far too long, and we're not going to tolerate it.
Right now, there's a $50 million.
Has President Trump set a new deadline on Hamas? I mean, yesterday he said, straighten up quickly. But, do we have an update on sort of what that means and what that new deadline could look like?
I won't set a deadline for the president. It's only for him to do that. But what I can tell you is that Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner, who deserve great credit for bringing this deal to a close, for getting the hostages out of Gaza in the first place, are actively working on this. They are continuing to discuss this with both sides to ensure that all of the bodies are found and returned. And, I was speaking with them about this yesterday. I know there's been a lot of reporting about the slower pace of bodies being returned to Israel. These bodies, unfortunately, are very deep underground, and so it's going to take some time and some special equipment to actually retrieve these bodies and bring them back to Israel. And the administration is fully committed to helping all sides get that done. It was part of the deal, and we're going to see it through.
Does the White House have a response to the court case that prevented your rifts, your shutdown rifts going through? Does that take away the president's leverage to end the shutdown?
I'm so glad you asked, because I have a very strong response. This is another far-left partisan judge who was smacked down by the Supreme Court in July for ruling on this exact same thing. In May, this judge tried to say that the President of the United States does not have the executive authority to hire and fire in the executive branch. Literally, nobody would ever try to make that argument except for someone who is extremely partisan. And of course, the Supreme Court rejected that ruling in July, and they said, no, the president does have the ability and the legal authority to fire people from the federal government. That is a responsibility of his job as the head of the executive branch. And so you have the same judge going back to the bench and ruling on the basis of politics. We are 100% confident we will win this on the merits of the law, and these layoffs are an unfortunate consequence of the government shutdown. We are now on day 16 of this Democrat shutdown. Democrats just voted again for the 10th time to keep the government closed and to keep the American people hostage. And we're seeing the consequences of it every day. We've had thousands of flights delayed and canceled. Air traffic controllers, TSA agents continue to work without pay. The president tapped into tariff revenue to keep WIC money for women and infants infants and children going out the door. The president, it found a creative solution to keep the troops paid. And rather than congratulate the president for doing that, this unprecedented action to get our troops paid, the Democrats want to sue him for it. They're saying that it's illegal. This just shows they don't care about the people who are hurting. They are shutting down the government purely for partisan politics because they don't like Donald Trump. And the only people that are suffering from that are federal government employees who are being laid off from their jobs, who are not being paid for their jobs, our military, our federal law enforcement, and the American people who can't catch a plane with holiday season coming up because flights are being delayed and canceled. Democrats need to do the right thing. And I don't know if you guys caught the CNN town hall last night with AOC and Bernie Sanders, but I sure did. And it's very clear that they are now the leaders of the Democrat Party. And the Democrats are in complete disarray. And we hope a few moderate Democrats with some common sense will step up to the plate and do the right thing to vote to open the federal government. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Caroline.
All right, there you go. That's, of course, the White House Press Secretary, Carolyn Leavitt, stopping by, speaking to the press right outside of the West Wing. So indirectly, we had a press briefing at the White House just now, live right here on Right Side Broadcasting Network. So that's what you can count on Right Side for, and in conservative media, just always being ready for what's going on out there, whether it's live in the moment or even on replay. And a great catch there by our production team here at Right Side to see that video there. And we went right there to Carolyn Leavitt. And a shout out as well to all of our great sponsors, including Kalshi, Kalshi.com/RSBN. There's more than 1 million users on Kalshi right now. And then on top of that, that number is growing. So you can download the app, you can go to the website, you can use the QR code. It's all about betting, trading, and just checking out polls online. All sorts of topics on Kalshi.com/RSBN. So go ahead and check it out. Great sponsor here at Right Side Broadcasting Network. Same thing with AngelPace.com out of Spring, Texas. They hire military veterans. They have great products, as you see one of them right there on your screen. But they have a lot more to offer. When you just go to AngelPace.com, use that RSBN promo code. You'll get a discount off. Two great sponsors here. And we have many more to talk about in the coming couple hours, actually, as we await President Trump's announcement from the Oval Office. In the meantime, speaking of President Trump, we know he'll be speaking at 3 o'clock, but if you all are watching maybe on the TV right now or a laptop, that kind of thing, or if you have your phone around, if you're watching on the phone, I don't know how you'd be able to do this, but you could try. Maybe minimize the screen and follow along with me, because this is quite the message here from President Trump just minutes ago on Truth Social. So I'll just read it to you. This was literally at 12:11 Central, so 1:11 Eastern Time. He says, I have just concluded my telephone conversation with President Vladimir Putin of Russia, and it was a very productive one, the president says. President Putin congratulated me and the United States on the great accomplishment of peace in the Middle East, something that he said has been dreamed of for centuries. President Trump continuing on this Truth Social post saying, I actually believe that the success in the Middle East will help in our negotiation in attaining an end to the war with Russia-Ukraine. President Putin thanked the First Lady, Melania, for her involvement with children. He was very appreciative and said that this will continue. The president says here, we also spent a great deal of time talking about trade between Russia and the United States when the war with Ukraine is over. At the conclusion of the call, again reading from the Truth Social post here, the president says, we agreed that there will be a meeting of our high-level advisors next week. The United States' initial meetings will be led by the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, together with various other people to be designated. President Putin and I then will meet in an agreed-upon location, Budapest, Hungary, to see if we can bring this inglorious war between Russia and Ukraine to an end. President Trump continues on Truth Social, last bit here, saying, President Zelensky and I will be meeting tomorrow in the Oval Office, where we will discuss my conversation with President Putin and much more. I believe great progress was made with today's telephone conversation, end quote. That, again, from President Trump on Truth Social within the past 30 minutes. And you heard Carolyn Leavitt there. If you're just joining us now, Carolyn Leavitt was just live outside the White House. It's one of these broadcasts that you might have to scrub around maybe at the end of it to catch all of the news, because we're capturing it as it happens, just like we did right there. Again, a shout out to the production team for getting that as we're approaching the bottom of the hour. We know President Trump will be speaking at 3 o'clock from the Oval Office. We look forward to that, hearing the announcement that he will be making. As of right now, I have no idea what announcement it will be. I'm in Alabama right now, and my sources in D.C., well, we'll get more of them, hopefully, as the years go on. But I will say this, we're looking forward to hearing from the president coming up shortly. Meantime, again, tomorrow, President Trump will be meeting with Vladimir Zelensky. You can count on Right Side Broadcasting Network for live coverage of that. Let's shift back to what Caroline was talking about, and we will also finish the press conference that we had to break away from when it comes to Mike Johnson's press conference, his 16th press conference, because today's day 16 of this good old Democrat shutdown. We're going to continue that press conference in just a little bit. But speaking of this day 16 of the government shutdown, it's affecting farmers as well. Here's a video from the White House that was posted within the hour.
My name is Jesse Fly. I farm in Northeast Arkansas. The government shutdown is currently putting a great stress on our operation. This stress becomes larger every day. We urge Congress to reopen the government. Every day this doesn't happen, it punishes us.
My name is Joe McDaniel. I'm a cotton farmer from Tipton County, Tennessee. We're about halfway through with our cotton harvest this fall, but this year with the government shutdown, we're not able to get our cotton classed and enrolled in the USDA loan program. We need the government open. We need USDA and its programs to help us cash flow and to market this crop because we can't sell with prices where they are.
My name is Catherine Boulin, and I'm an Iowa farmer, and every day is not getting better for hardworking Americans. Families like mine are stretching every dollar while Washington plays politics.
As a farmer in central Iowa, I'm telling you that every day the government is shut down, hardworking Americans continue to suffer.
My name's Buddy Hughes, and I'm a small builder developer from Lexington, North Carolina. I'm here today to urge Congress to end this shutdown as soon as possible, because any federal program that touches housing, from loan processing to block grants, is slowing down.
We got about 18,000 Iowans that are gonna not get paid soon. We're gonna lose our SNAP benefits.
I'm a wife to an air traffic controller. We are already seeing the effects of it on our family.
Hello, my name is Mike Wanklin. I'm a firefighter at Joint Base Myers-Hall in Arlington, Virginia. This government shutdown is causing much unneeded stress for a job that is already stressful. Not knowing when the next paycheck is coming is terrifying. We all have rent due, car payments, mortgages, and overall need to provide for our families.
My name is Bryce Morgan, president of IFF Local F88, Federal Firefighters for Wright Pat Air Force Base. With the already recognized deficiencies in our pay and hours worked, we are currently being forced to work for no pay until a budget or continuing resolution passes Congress. I'm asking Congress to reach an agreement for the budget so we, the ones who support the missions at military installations, can have a burden lifted and get back to normalcy of our everyday lives.
Hi, my name is Wes, and I'm a federal firefighter. My crew and I are still reporting for duty every day, protecting lives, property, and our nation. But during the government shutdown, we're doing it without pay. We're essential employees, so we don't get to stay home. We're proud to serve, but our families are struggling while Congress fails to do its job. To every member of Congress, your decisions have real consequences. We're here when America needs us. Please come together and fund the government.
I'm Kelly Durick, wife of Lieutenant Gregory Durick with the Mid-Atlantic Navy Regional Fire Department. My husband protects our military bases every single day. Fires, medical emergencies, you name it. He doesn't get to stop just because the government shut down. Federal firefighters keep showing up for this country. It's our time our government shows up for them with fair, on-time pay for the work they've already done.
My name is Josh, a federal firefighter with 18 years of service to the federal government. I'm a husband and father of 3, and the conversations I have recently had with my wife are ones that I thought would never have to happen. And not knowing when my next paycheck is coming has had us talk about possibly canceling my son's upcoming birthday party. Please, we ask that you do what you can. We've done our part. We show up to work. We do our job. We just ask that you Please find a resolution.
My name is Matthew Silverman, and I serve as the National President for the Federal Law Enforcement Officers Association, representing almost 35,000 federal agents and officers. As you know, our federal agents and officers are on the streets on a daily basis, ensuring the safety of all of our citizens. And right now, they are doing this without being paid. I have received over 100 phone calls and emails explaining to me that these members are unsure if they are going to be able to pay their bills, pay their mortgage, or put food on the tables for their families.
I'm Ross Vieira. As a military veteran, I see firsthand how the government shutdown isn't just political games. It's hurting real families. We're struggling as the services are stalled and our nation's security is compromised. This is not a time for partisan games, and the Democrats need to stop holding everything hostage and reopen the government now.
All right. So, of course, a number of Americans deeply affected by this Democrat shutdown. So we're monitoring that. Again, this is day 16. We know that the continuing resolution did not pass the Senate again today. So we're going to be moving on to day 17, which means the 17th press conference in a row for the GOP Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson. We'll be airing that most likely tomorrow. Also, we know that, again, the Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky will return to the White House. It seems like this is, his third, fourth time there in the past 10 months of the president's second administration. We're also seeing a new post from President Trump. We're going to get to that in just a second. First, let's go to some of our great sponsors, including Cove Pure. Cove Pure is an awesome, awesome sponsor, just like all of them are. This is great. No more tap water. Who wants to drink that? I don't know. Do you like tap water? I don't think many people do. So, and if you remember the water crisis in Flint, Michigan a while back, you'd think that America would have gotten its act together by now on clean drinking water. But unfortunately, we have to think again about it because lead and heavy metals are still showing up in city after city. The pipes that are running into your home, very old. And then what's flowing through those pipes is not what you'd ever want to drink or give to your kids to drink. That's why the Cove Pure water purifier is one of the best investments you can make to keep your family safe and healthy, because unlike the government with this water situation, Cove Pure actually does its job. The EPA itself admits millions of Americans are still exposed to lead in tap water. So lead exposure, by the way, doesn't just make your water taste like you're chewing on a car battery. It causes terrible health problems, brain damage, cancer, and long-term health issues. But of course, what could go wrong if we trust in, the local city council that's not doing much about it? Not against everybody at the city council, but still, these water problems are happening out there. So Cove Pure is the obvious fix. Their ClearWave technology removes up to 99.9% of contaminants, so lead, fluoride, pharmaceuticals, you name it. No plumbers needed, no drilling. Just plug it in on your countertop, set the temperature you want with the touch screen, and it actually tastes like water. So don't wait around for the government to solve this. Unfortunately, they won't when it comes to this water situation. So covepure.com/RSBN. Get $200 off while supplies last. So you can take back your control of the your family's health and finally drink water the way it was meant to be. Cove Pure, great sponsor here at Right Side. Great product as well, just like all of them here at Right Side Broadcasting Network. Let's move on to Perplexity as we get ready to go to President Trump's latest post. And a quick question for you. How much time do you spend every day on a web browser? How much time do you spend clicking around online, searching, scrolling, typing, endless tabs? Well, it's a lot, right? Well, there's a new AI web browser from Perplexity. As you see there, it's called Comet, and I've used this before. It's completely changing the way you're able to interact with your browser. Using Comet feels more like having a personal assistant living in your web browser that can actually do things for you across the internet instead of just give you answers. You can ask Comet to handle tasks for you, and it literally clicks, it types, searches, scrolls, just like you would, to get things done for you in the background while you go about your day. And Comet can also shop for you, make reservations, book travel, summarize articles or videos, send emails, schedule meetings, and a lot more to make your life easier. All you have to do is download Perplexity's new AI web browser. It's called Comet. by heading to that website you see on the bottom right of your screen. It's pplx.ai/RSBN. Plus, right now, when you download Comment, you get a month of Rumble Premium for free. A shout out to those of you watching on Rumble and Rumble Premium out there as we get ready to see President Trump in about an hour and a half from now. At 2 o'clock, we'll have a changing of the guard as Robert McNeely will be in studio covering that hour into the president. In the meantime, I'm here. My name is Matthew Alvarez. Thanks so much for joining us. As we just saw moments ago at that podium, or that makeshift podium outside the West Wing, Carolyn Levitt stepped up to that podium and talked about day 16 of the government shutdown, talked about the Russia-Ukraine war, and the fact that Zelensky will be at the White House tomorrow. So we'll have that here for you right here on Right Side Broadcasting Network. In the meantime, let's talk about the Department of War. They are continuing to build that wall along with a number of other entities in Arizona. And it was fascinating to see some of the things that they were actually writing on the border wall before they were putting the border wall up. Take a look.
There you go.
You know, you think about all those rallies, we heard those chants, build the wall. Well, we're finally seeing it done with nobody stopping us from doing it. It's great to see it. And how awesome was that when some of the workers there were writing for Charlie? And by the way, that wall that you saw in this video that's going up and it's continuing through 15 miles of wall there in the state of Arizona, the Grand Canyon state, of course, where TPUSA is headquartered. So it was quite the video there. As we just saw yesterday, actually 2 days ago, when it comes to the awarding of the Presidential Medal of Freedom posthumously to the great late Charlie Kirk. All right, let's shift over to one of the latest posts from President Trump. This one, this is quite something. He says, if Hamas continues to kill people in Gaza, which was not the deal, we have no choice. We will have no choice but to go in and kill them. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Let me read that again and read it flawlessly this time. How about that? All right, this was 9 minutes ago. If Hamas continues to kill people in Gaza, which was not the deal, we will have no choice but to go in and kill them. Thank you for your attention to this matter. President Trump, just a few minutes ago, on the heels of posting about his conversation with President Putin as well. So he's got the international relations on the mind right now, but not really relations, of course, at all when it comes to what's going on there in Gaza if Hamas continues to do what they're doing. I did see on the New York Post, I think it was yesterday or the day before, some terrible images there of Hamas lining up people and executing them. It was really not easy to see, but that's what you're seeing from the president when it comes to the message. You saw it there, what he just said. If you're just joining us, he was saying that if Hamas continues to kill people in Gaza, which was not the deal, we'll have no choice but to go and kill them. Go in and kill them. So quite the development there. 1:40 Eastern time. We have about 5 minutes, to hang out together before we go to Mike Johnson once again to finish up that press conference. And then after the press conference, Robert McNeely will pick up coverage from there, and he'll carry it into when President Trump is doing the announcement there from the White House. So we're looking forward to that and looking forward to coverage tomorrow when we see Zelensky there at the White House. Speaking of the White House, President Trump had a few choice words yesterday when it comes to those who have broken the law and attacked the president and his family and the American people through the weaponization of government over the years. If you watched just yesterday, you heard this final 16-second mic drop soundbite, and we're going to play it for you right now.
These are sick, bad people, and don't tell me about us going after them. If anything, we've been very, very soft. I wouldn't be that soft, I'll tell you that. Thank you very much, everybody. Let's go.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I mean, what are you going to say to that? I mean, that's something that a number of people, and I would go as far to say the majority of the people that voted for President Trump, the MAGA base, which is the majority of the country, is saying, amen, President Trump. That's what we want to see. And we see that he's frustrated with some of it, but we are seeing indictments trickle in. We'll see what happens. We're watching. I know you are too. It's 1:42 before we get to the remainder of that press conference with Mike Johnson. Would like to share a couple sponsors with you, but before we get to those sponsors, had a couple more things I wanted to add before we did our changing of the guard here. The God, Family, Country, Freedom, right? God, Family, Country, Freedom. We always talk about that here at the network. And according to Mrs. Erica Kirk from Tuesday on October 14th, she said, the late, great Charlie Kirk, she said, that believed that liberty can only survive when anchored to truth. What a powerful statement that is. Liberty, freedom can only survive when anchored to truth. And we know that truth is actually common sense out there. You want to be safe. You want to be wealthy. You want to have freedom. You want the Constitution to be the law of the land. These are basic things. We have to have those things in order to remain free here in this country. So looking forward to that. Also tonight in the Big Apple, there's a huge mayoral debate between Zohran Mamdani, a real winner, right? Former Governor Andrew Cuomo and Curtis Sliwa. Actually was reaching out to Curtis Sliwa's team, so we'll see if we can get him on the program maybe this week or next week, because that is just weeks away, that mayoral race and that election there in New York City. So monitoring all of that. All right, let's go to a couple of our sponsors, then we'll go right back to the remainder of the press conference with Mike Johnson as we continue to stand by for the President of the United States in a bit from now for his announcement. So let's first go to, I believe it's crypto.com. Let's be clear about that though too. Cryptocurrency is no longer emerging. It's actually here. And this latest move cements that reality in a big way. Trump Media actually just inked a massive $6.4 billion deal with Crypto.com and Yorkville Acquisition Corp. So Crypto.com is the crypto platform trusted by millions of users worldwide. They're teaming up to scoop up that $6.4 billion in CRO. That is the powerhouse token that fuels fast, low-fee DeFi, which means decentralized finance, staking rewards, and real-world perks like cashback on your spends. This is all to establish America's first CRO treasury, Trump Media Group CRO strategy. So when it's done, this new company will be the biggest publicly traded CRO holder out there. And if you want in on the action, all you got to do is go to crypto.com today. And you can make crypto great again. To buy the CRO, just visit, again, crypto.com. Let's go to our next sponsor as it's 1:45 Eastern, Thursday, October 16th. And that is Chapter. And for many in our audience, it's Medicare annual enrollment time. If you are 64 and older, you know that what that means. It means nonstop robocalls, junk mail, and spam texts from people trying to sell you something. And the truth is, Medicare is confusing on purpose. And who benefits? Big insurance companies. Every year they quietly change their plans. Some plans they even drop completely. And this leaves millions of Americans stuck on plans that cost too much or cover too little. So even if you are liking your current plan, you've got to look at your 2026 options. That's where Chapter comes in. Chapter doesn't work for big insurance or the government. They're independent. They're the only advisors who compare every Medicare plan nationwide to find the one that fits your needs and preferences. They make things quick and easy, and it takes under 20 minutes to review your options. So if your plan is still the best for you in 2026, great, you're done already. But if not, they'll help you switch. On average, people who work with Chapter save $1,100 a year. And the best part, their help is free. So you don't have to let the system take advantage of you. Give them a call. You see that number there on your screen, 833-438-3359, and let Chapter make your Medicare work for you. A great sponsor here at Right Side. Chapter, 833-438-3359. All right, so it's 1:46, Thursday, October 16th. Again, my name is Matthew Alvarez. This is RSBN Live. Thank you so much for watching for the past 45 minutes. You saw Carolyn Levitt right there at that podium outside of the White House. And, of course, now let's go from one podium, makeshift podium at least, to a real big podium where the GOP Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, is continuing his 16th day press conference for the Democrat shutdown. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Matthew Alvarez. Robert McNeely will pick up coverage on the other side of this presser. We'll see you in a bit.
Medicare subsidies and all those issues, all that sits at a standstill until Democrats reopen the government. As soon as 5 Senate Democrats come to their senses and break ranks and turn the lights back on, House Republicans are anxious to get back to legislative session and to pick up our unfinished business. We have a lot yet to do. Until then, I'll continue to share the facts from this podium every morning to try to get this message directly to the American people. Republicans will continue serving on the job in our communities on behalf of the American people that we represent. I'm going to conclude this morning by saying this again. There's an incredible contrast right now between the two parties that could not be more clear. As we say here every day, this is not your grandfather's Democratic Party. It truly has become the far left, Marxist left, that are running that whole operation. And it has real effects on real people. And I just want you to, I'll highlight again the split screen of what we're seeing. In America right now, there are two diametrically opposed visions for the country, and you should look at the actions of elected officials and not their words. And what are the actions? President Trump and Republicans are delivering for the American people. We have cut their taxes. We are removing red tape and regulations to get the economy humming again. We have ended the border crisis, virtually 0 crossings in the last 4 months under President Trump. We are ending the crime crisis around America, taking heroic measures to make sure that happens. We're cutting fraud, waste, and abuse out of government and making government more efficient and effective for the people. And right now, President Trump is resolving international conflicts, restoring peace through strength around the globe. That's just a small sampling of what's been done by Republicans in the last 9 months. And what have Democrats done the last 9 months? On the split screen, look at the other side. They've shut down the government. I mean, I don't know what else to say. Put all the gimmicks and the talking points aside and look at the indisputable facts and evidence of what is happening right here. There could not be a stronger contrast between the two parties. And I don't know how more simply we can say that. With all that, I'm really happy to introduce our good friend from New York. Chairman Andrew Garbarino is the chair of our House Committee on Homeland Security, and he's here with us this morning to tell us a little bit more about the grave consequences of the Democrat shutdown on America's national security. It could not be more serious than it is right now. Andrew, go ahead.
Thank you, Speaker.
Sure.
Thank you, Speaker, and Leader Scalise and Chairman McClain. Thank you all for being here today. The Senate Democrats' decision to shut down this government for cheap political points lacks any common sense and is undermining the Department of Homeland Security's core mission, as well as the people tasked with upholding it. Nearly 95% of DHS's workforce is considered essential, and that's rightfully so. But that means they're at work right now, and they're not getting paid. More than 63,000 CBP personnel, including U.S. Border Patrol, are continuing their steadfast commitment to securing our borders. More than 61,000 TSA personnel are continuing their mission to protect the traveling public and keep the skies safe. More than 8,000 Secret Service personnel are still carrying out their no-fail mission to safeguard our nation's leaders. More than 49,000 U.S. Coast Guard personnel are serving to protect our maritime borders. I'm grateful that President Trump and Secretary Noem are taking steps to ensure that the Coast Guard personnel are getting paid, just like our military during the shutdown. And I appreciate the department's continued work to support frontline law enforcement officers. I think, though, it's also very vital that we ensure that TSA security officers are compensated as well. Just because the government shut down doesn't mean people aren't still flying. We owe all of these men and women at DHS a debt of gratitude for their continued service. But the shutdown is not just about personnel. It's undercutting our homeland security posture. A lapse in government funding prevents DHS from moving forward with critical new investments that enable us to stay ahead of rapidly evolving threats. New contracts are put on hold, and proactive engagements with security partners are postponed. Shutdowns also disrupt the disbursement of vital grants from the Homeland Security Department to our state and local law enforcement partners. This undermines preparedness efforts and makes our communities less safe. Voting against the CR also, the Democrats have allowed crucial DHS authorities to expire. One of those is the Cybersecurity Information Sharing Act of 2015. Without that, 90% of our critical infrastructure is owned by private companies. They can't communicate with us right now. They can't tell us when there's a cyber attack because this lapsed. Every second we go without the ability for them to share that information makes us less safe. They've also the counter drone authority has also lapsed. That was in the CR. Without this in place, agencies may not be able to swiftly take down malicious drones before they threaten U.S. airspace. There are dozens more. In short, this shutdown is making our country less safe. And I implore Senate Democrats to do the right thing and reopen the government now. With that, I would like to bring up Leader Scalise.
Thank you. Well, you just heard a very stark, grim reality from Chairman Garbarino of what Chuck Schumer's shutdown is doing to our nation's ability to protect the homeland. The Department of Homeland Security is one of the most critical in terms of our ability to keep Americans safe here at home. And they're doing incredible work. And, fortunately, like Chairman Garbarino said, 95% of the employees are deemed essential, but they're on the job not getting paid. But beyond that, he also pointed out grants are not going out. The sharing of information on things like cybersecurity is not happening. These are real devastating consequences of Chuck Schumer's shutdown. And nobody on the Democrat side can still articulate the reason why they're doing it beyond the obvious. And the obvious reason is Chuck Schumer being scared for his political future. Scared from who? From AOC. And last night, as the speaker mentioned, we saw two of the Democrat Party leaders, Bernie Sanders and AOC, at a forum, town hall, whatever you want to call it, on CNN. And they were laughing, they were guffawing like it's some kind of game. In fact, when AOC was pressed to say, what is it that y'all are shutting the government down over? She couldn't even give an articulate answer. This is what she said, quote, "I think we need to see ink on paper. I think we need to see legislation. And I think we need to see these things passed on the floor of the House and Senate and signed by the president." Can anybody tell me what she's talking about? I mean, they filed an alternative bill that everybody knows is not serious, $1.5 trillion in new spending to do, among other things, to gut the Rural Hospital Fund, the $50 billion that we put in place, the largest investment in rural hospitals in our country's history. They want to gut that to give free health care to illegals. That's not going to happen, and that's not a serious proposal. But in fact, when you get back to the heart of the question, and that is Chuck Schumer fighting for his political life in New York, they did ask AOC that question. Are you going to primary Chuck Schumer? And she laughed, and Bernie tried to bail her out of the question, but ultimately she wouldn't give a direct response to that, because that's really what this shutdown is about. Is Chuck Schumer afraid of the AOC wing of the party primarying and beating him in New York? And so he's just concerned about his political future, and he's willing to jeopardize the lives of the American people, to jeopardize our homeland security abilities that Chairman Garbarino talked about. These are serious consequences to real people, men and women in uniform, our federal workers that are not getting paid. All for what? For the gibberish you heard last night, they cannot articulate even what they want. We presented a clean CR that Chuck Schumer himself voted for in March. Very straightforward bill to fund the government and open it up just to give us more time to negotiate our differences. Very big differences that we have on policy, but we can't even get to those policy negotiations while Chuck Schumer is shutting down the government. So Senator Thune's doing a great job of trying to find a way to keep bringing the bills back up until one day just 5 more senators on the Democrat side come to their senses and say they're willing to get the government back open so we can resume those negotiations. And we stand ready. We've done our job in the House, and we're ready to get back to work. There's a lot of work stacking up, but while Chuck Schumer keeps the government shut down, it's hurting millions of real families across America. With that, turn it over to our conference chair, Lisa McClain.
Thank you, Leader, and thank you, Rep. Garbarino, for being here and the work that you're doing on the Homeland Security. Here we are. Democrats have shut down your government now for 16 days. So I think we all want to know, what have the Democrats done with all this time on their hands, right? Well, let's see. They've posed for glossy photos outside the Capitol. They've screamed at Capitol police officers who, by the way, they are refusing to pay, right? They've jumped on TV to what looks like an audition to be the next radical in charge after Chuck Schumer. And now they're gearing up for their I Hate America rally this weekend. A rally where they'll cheer for chaos instead of country. So take note of what goes on at that rally. Take note of how they put Americans first, really. Now, let's contrast that with Republicans who are doing what we always do, and that is actually working for the American people. And let me give you some examples, and I know our speaker talked about this, but I think this bears repeating again. Pat Fallon, who was in Texas hosting a town hall. Congressman LaLota connected with more than 8,000 of his constituents in New York doing a teletown hall. Congressman Collins held mobile office hours in Georgia. Congressman Walberg in my home state of Michigan brought veterans together in Michigan to tackle problems right now with the VA. Congressman Zinke actually rolled up his sleeves, literally rolled up his sleeves in Montana to help Yellowstone National Park to clean it up. That's the difference. One side delivers solutions and the other are showboats. Republicans passed a clean CR to keep the government open. No gimmicks, no tricks. We actually want to govern. We did our job. And then we got back to work for the people who actually sent us here. Democrats, they saw a shutdown as leverage, as a chance to push for more wasteful spending. And don't take my word for it. Look at what they want to do, $1.5 trillion. You should never use a shutdown as leverage for more wasteful spending. But that's exactly what the Democrats are doing. Well, I have news for them. It's not going to work. Republicans are united behind the work that we've done for the American people. We will not hand out government benefits to illegals on your dime. We will not repeal provisions that cut waste, fraud, and abuse. And we will not cave to Democrats' $1.5 trillion in spending. So it's time for the Democrats to wrap up the photo shoots, stop actually attacking law enforcement, and end the who's more radical contest. Let's pass our clean bill and get back to work for the American people who sent us here. Thank you.
All right, time for questions. Chad, go ahead.
Mr. Speaker, good morning.
Good morning.
I know what Republicans have said, saying the shutdown is because Schumer is afraid of Ocasio-Cortez. There have been questions to Ocasio-Cortez, Schumer, saying, is this because you're afraid? Are you going to challenge in a primary? They deny that. I understand the tension here about the shutdown. Just because you're saying that that's the case does not necessarily make that true. when they deny that, why should we continue to say, okay, it's because they're worried about their left flank, or Schumer's worried about Ocasio-Cortez challenging him in a primary?
Well, look, I'll be intellectually consistent and tell you don't listen to what politicians say. Look at the actual evidence. I could put on my evidence here. First, Exhibit A is what AOC actually said last night. She did not disclaim that she was running against Schumer, and there's a lot to talk about that. You don't have to take my word for it. Most of you have written about that. But then also look at the evidence. Exhibit B would be what happened in March. And when we began all this, and I think at the first or second day of the shutdown, I brought you a magazine cover that I had on a big stack on my desk, the Washington Examiner, and it was a cartoon depiction of Chuck Schumer leaving the Senate with a box with all his belongings as if he'd been fired, and he had this shameful look on his face. And all the House Democrats were drawn behind him, screaming at him, holding up signs saying he was a traitor, etc. And that's the abuse he took from the far left corners of the base after he did the right and responsible thing, by his own words, not mine, the right and responsible thing to pass the continuing resolution in March. We have the identical product on the table today. What has changed? Don't take our word for it. Just go look. The only explanation for this is that Chuck Schumer does not want to face the heat and the scrutiny and the abuse that he took in March for doing the right, responsible thing by the far left voices in his party. When Bernie and AOC get the full stage for a CNN, the first socialist town hall, I hope they're proud of themselves. They are the voices of the party. I mean, they are. Look, Mamdani is on path, shockingly, sadly, frighteningly, to become the elected mayor of the largest city in America, the once cradle of capitalism. There is a Marxist rise in the Democratic Party, and the old guard, and I'm saying old guard, Chuck Schumer's been here for 44 years, okay? He is not the flavor of the month. And he knows that he's going to get a challenge. If it's not AOC, it'll be another disciple of Mamdani or somebody like that. They all know that. Ask Hakeem Jeffries why he has not openly endorsed Mamdani for the mayor of New York. He's in a real bind. Because Hakeem Jeffries, while he's a far-left progressive politician, he's not a communist. But you have to aspire, you have to say, you have to stand for the farthest left ideas, socialism, communism, Marxism right now, to be in favor in the Democratic Party. This is not your grandfather's Democratic Party. They wouldn't recognize it. And that's the dynamic that Chuck Schumer is dealing with, and that's why he's drawn the line right here. He had to show a fight, and everybody knows it. It is plainly on display. Yes?
News broke this week of the racist Hitler-loving group chat among young Republicans, including Vermont State Senator, and then an American flag with a swastika was found in a Republican congressman's office this week. Are you worried about that extremist pro-Hitler sentiment among the party's young Republicans?
No. Look, obviously we roundly condemn any of that nonsense, and the young Republican or the organization, whoever that, I don't know who any of these people are, I never heard of them. Somebody posted a photo of me standing next to these guys. We're in tuxedos. Obviously, I think it was at the inauguration, and people were just coming up and asking for selfies with 1,000 of them. I don't know. I never heard of that person in my life. But whoever these young people are, and whatever they're saying, if it's true, we obviously condemn that. And the organizations involved are dealing with that. That's my understanding. With regard to the swastika thing, this happened last night. A Republican congressman, allegedly one of his staffers had something in the background or something in a Zoom. That's what I heard this morning. He says that that's not his, and there's a proper investigation ongoing, and the congressman did exactly what he should have done, and that is report it. It's under investigation, and I can't comment on it any further until that's done, but I will say, obviously, that is not the principles of the Republican Party. We stand for the founding principles of America. You want me to articulate them for you right now? Individual freedom, limited government, the rule of law, peace through strength, fiscal responsibility, free markets, human dignity, the things that lead to human flourishing. We have stood against that. We fought the Nazis. We defended that evil ideology. We roundly condemn it, and anybody in any party who espouses it, we're opposing that. I don't know how else more simply to say that. Yes, sir.
Back on the shutdown, Leader Thune has offered Democrats a vote by the end of the year on Obamacare subsidies. Would you be willing to make the same commitment to sort of ease the shutdown?
Let me tell you what happened yesterday, because I met with Leader Thune, and he offered to Chuck Schumer a vote on Obamacare subsidies, and Schumer said no. that happened. Asked Leader Thune about it, because they wanted a guaranteed outcome. Here's why we can't do that. Let me say this very clearly and for everyone again. Okay, The Obamacare subsidy issue is not the issue of today. It is in a subsidy that expires December 31. We were always planning to continue the debate and discussion about that issue in October and November. Ironically, Democrats are taking the time off the clock for us to do that. It's a very complicated, complex matter. There are no income caps on that. By the way, did you know if you're a hardworking taxpayer, middle-class earner, and your family's struggling to put food on the table, did you know that you are subsidizing wealthy people's health care with that subsidy? You probably didn't. Premiums have risen by some estimates 60% since Obamacare was enacted into law in 2010. There's no way to repeal and replace it because it's too deeply ingrained right now. We have to improve it. Republicans are the ones with the ideas to increase access to care, the quality of care, and bring down the cost. Not the Democrats. They're the ones that gave us this problem, and they're the ones that have made it so expensive. Now, we have 535 members between the House and Senate. There's a lot of people in this deliberative body here. That's a very complicated issue. It's not something that 4 people can go into a back room and guarantee an outcome on. It can't be done. It was not possible to be part of the CR, and it is not feasible. It's not appropriate to be on the CR. We require the member-driven consensus process here, and that's what's necessary. So it's not possible for Leader Thune to guarantee to Chuck Schumer some outcome on that because we haven't finished those deliberations. I mean, that's just as simple as it is, and all of you report on the Hill all the time. You know how the process works. So when Leader Thune offered Schumer a vote on the ACA, on the subsidy, without guaranteeing an outcome, Schumer said, nope, no thanks, we'll keep it closed. Because, by the way, remember, every day of the shutdown gets better for us, as Chuck Schumer said, okay? It's not getting better for the American people.
Were you not committed to holding a vote on ACA subsidy?
No, I didn't say that. I did not say that, Reed. I said none of us can guarantee an outcome on that. I have said consistently all along, this is part of the deliberative process. We're going to debate and discuss that. And there are debates and discussions going on our side of the aisle and on theirs, but to get everybody together and build that consensus is not possible until we get the government operating again and we stop holding. I get very upset about that. We stop holding the American people hostage for these ridiculous political games. People see what's going on here. We should not have Border Patrol agents not paid right now because Chuck Schumer wants to pay political games to cover his tail. I don't know how much more simply to say that, and every single one of you know that's exactly what's going on. I don't like being mad, Mike. I want to be happy, Mike. I want to be the happy warrior, but I am so upset about this. God bless America. We're done. Thanks.
Day 16 of the government shutdown. What a waste of time, thanks to Senator Chuck Schumer and his buddy Hakeem Jeffries in the House. They are holding the government hostage and harming those hard-earning public employees. And thank God that we have Speaker Mike Johnson and House Republican leadership to explain it all thoroughly. Sometimes the press corps does not understand, but it's clear as day that this is the Democrats' fault on a gorgeous day in the nation's capital. The sun shining bright in the afternoon on 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue as we await President Trump to make an announcement right here at Right Side Broadcasting Network. Thank you to All Family Pharmacy. You know, it's that time of year where a cold and fever can turn into much worse. Half the household then gets sick with cold or flu or, God forbid, COVID. And this year we're already seeing it. So many flu cases skyrocketing. So code RSBN 10, that's 10% off of Tamiflu, ivermectin, antibiotics, and much, much more, from NAD Plus to methylene blue. Find out how you can stock over 200 essential medications right there in your medicine cabinet, including emergency medical kits and these life-saving medications that you could take with you on the road. So an excellent thing to do when the problem being that flu clinics and the urgent cares, pharmacies can be way backed up this time of year, and you can't actually find what you need, including parasite cleanses that can be given to you right through ivermectin. Also, off-label generics that can make a world of difference. Again, Tamiflu, ivermectin, antibiotics, NAD+, methylene blue, 200 essential medications, including antivirals and emergency medical kits right there for you. No red tape, no bureaucracy, no insurance, no problem at all. Scan that QR code there for 10% off. RSBN 10, allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. Thank you as well to Monetary Gold, the best in the business. Grab your complimentary presidential gold guide today. It's wealth, it's security, it's preservation. Call today. Do not delay. Ask how you can eliminate your annual IRA fees permanently. for life. That is 888-617-7994, rsbnforthegold.com. You know what's great about these? The fact that Robert Kiyosaki talking in depth about the banks that have failed this year, and that the almost 500 that failed under the Obama administration. Where does that leave you with gold and silver? Remember, he wrote Rich Dad, Poor Dad. He's a friend of President Trump's. And as the BRICS nations continue to move to devalue the American dollar, and right now we have a very weak American dollar, silver and gold skyrocketing in a bullish market. So diversify what matters most to you with retirements, pensions, your housing, maybe even crypto, but gold and silver truly crucial to diversification. With wealth security, preservation, all in the hands of Monetary Gold, why not grab a complimentary presidential gold guide? If you want to create generational wealth or just buy that first property, it makes sense to visit RSBNforthegold.com. Thank you for sponsoring us here on the right side of history. As you have seen over the course of the last hour or so, Caroline Levitt taking right to that mic before we go back to that replay for all crucial details on this phone call between President Trump and President Putin of Russia. Developments with peace in the Middle East, or another warning from President Trump detailing on Truth Social that if Hamas continues to kill and to maim and to threaten their Jewish brothers and sisters in the region, that there will be all hell to pay. And President Trump isn't messing around with this. We know he solved 8 wars in the period of 8 months and is committed to making sure that there is an everlasting peace, and if that ultimately means the end of Hamas, it means the end of Hamas. If you look back to the reinstitution of the State of Israel from 1948, post-World War II, we have seen bad actors in the region, namely through the Palestinian Liberation Organization. They have been far more violent than ever before over the course of nearly 20 years, when Hamas, as a political movement and a radical terrorist violent movement, has really taken over that government over the course of the last 20 years. If we could put that up, Mr. Producer, to showcase that Truth Social. Very beneficial for the viewers to see what President Trump is focused on right now in this time with Hamas, as we await President Trump to make an announcement. And that is right there earlier on. If Hamas continues to kill people in Gaza, which was not the deal, we will have no choice but to go ahead and kill them. Thank you for your attention to this matter. So he's not going to mess around with this. This was roughly 45 minutes ago when Hamas does these things. And that's a big issue with the Palestinian Liberation Organization prior to Hamas's leadership there. They've always gone up against these peace deals that have been implemented by Israel and by the United States, by the greater Western world. And never have we seen something quite like the Camp David Accords under the Carter administration, to the Abraham Accords in the first term, now to what just took place on Monday, on Columbus Day. Very fitting this week to have Arab and Muslim nations coming together to call for the peace of the world. And many European nations joining President Trump and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in this, and the fact that you have Turkey and Jordan, countless other nations, including Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, also coming together in order to call for peace in the Middle East, something that, as President Trump has said via Truth Social, he has dreamed of for centuries. And I actually believe that the success in the Middle East will help in negotiation and attaining an end to the war in Russia and Ukraine. So that has led to this now phone call from this morning. In case you missed it, Caroline Levitt coming right out there across the way from Pebble Beach, where the White House press pool waits for hits and to engage with the administration. Also right off of the West Wing entrance and the James S. Brady briefing room. And we could replay that, Mr. Producer, at your convenience to showcase what Caroline Levitt, the press secretary, had to say earlier.
Gorgeous. This is more fun than an indoor briefing. I'll take some questions. Sure. He just put out a truth statement. If you haven't seen it yet, I encourage you to look at it. But I was just talking with the president in the Secretary of State and the Vice President, and it was a very good and productive call. It lasted more than 2 hours. There were various issues that were discussed. President Putin congratulated President Trump for solving the conflict in Israel and Gaza and bringing peace back to the Middle East. He also thanked the First Lady for her efforts to bring back children and save children in this brutal conflict. And the president feels like great progress was made on this call. They also agreed to have a high-level senior staff meeting convene as early as next week, which will then be followed by a meeting very likely between President Trump and President Putin as well. They talked about Budapest as being a location for that. So as you all know, President Zelensky is coming to the White House tomorrow, so these discussions will continue. And frankly, I think the president deserves great credit. He literally just got off of a trip to the Middle East where historic peace and accomplishments, seeing the hostages return out of Gaza. These are major foreign policy accomplishments that so many people around the world thought could never be achieved. And so I think the president deserves a great deal of credit for doing that, coming home, dealing with so many domestic issues, and then again hopping on yet another call with President Putin and hosting President Zelensky again at the White House tomorrow to try to move the ball forward in peace and end this conflict in Russia.
Caroline. Thank you. After their meeting in Alaska, the president was optimistic that he could get Zelensky and Putin together in a room. Does he still believe that he can get the two leaders together sometime soon?
I think he thinks it's possible, and he would, of course, love to see that happen. But right now, there were discussions and plans are now being made for the Russian side and our folks, led by Secretary of State Marco Rubio, to meet, and then for President Putin and President Trump to perhaps meet again. But I don't think the president has closed the door on that at all.
And when is he going to meet Putin? You said in Hungary, possibly when?
Well, this call literally just happened, so we will provide you with more details as soon as we can, I promise.
On that call, did Vladimir Putin commit to sitting down with President Trump and President Zelensky?
He committed to sitting down with President Trump, as President Trump's Truth post put out for you.
And what did he say what it would take for him to be willing to sit down with Zelensky finally as well?
I don't want to get into that, but as I just said, the president and President Putin discussed meeting together in Budapest. And President Trump will talk about that opportunity with President Zelensky when he's here at the White House tomorrow.
Does Trump believe any conditions have changed to make a second meeting with Putin better, more successful than the Alaska meeting?
I think the president is always willing to take a chance at diplomacy, and this war, he has always said, is going to have to end at the negotiating table, and so he's, he never gives up, and he's willing to pursue it, and that's what you're hearing from the president today.
I have a question on the cartels. Yesterday we learned that at least the fifth strike on a boat off of the West Coast took place. We know that the Trump administration has previously said that they are an armed conflict with the people that the administration is striking. Who are these people, and don't you think not only the people, the American people, but lawmakers deserve to know?
Narco-terrorists who are trafficking drugs illegally to the United States of America. That's who we're in a conflict with. And the president's been very clear, and he's been very transparent about these strikes, releasing classified video, unclassifying that video, declassifying it rather for all of you to see, and to let the public and lawmakers know with each of these strikes. And there should be no surprise for this. The president campaigned on using every lever of power to go after the drug cartels who have been trafficking illicit poison into our country for far too long. And you heard the president speak about this yesterday. There was a question about why not just use the Coast Guard to grab these boats and grab the drugs on them. That's been going on for years and years, and the drug epidemic in this country has not gotten any better. The cartels have only gotten more powerful. So the president is taking these unprecedented steps, and it's making a real impact. We are seeing less boats with lots of drugs coming into the shores of the United States of America as a result of these successful strikes, and I think the American people can expect them to continue.
Nicholas Maduro, change of leadership at the IRS, specifically putting some of Trump's main allies into leadership positions in the Criminal Investigations Division. There's reports that George Santos is on the list to be investigated. Is there anybody else that you know of that is being looked at or being mentioned of being looked at?
Not to my knowledge, no. You'll have to reach out to the Department of Treasury.
Nicholas Maduro. Does President Trump believe, Nicholas Maduro, the president of Venezuela, does President Trump believe his days are numbered there?
I think President Trump believes that Nicolas Maduro is an illegitimate president leading an illegitimate regime that has been trafficking drugs to the United States of of America for far too long, and we're not going to tolerate it.
Right now,
has President Trump set a new deadline on Hamas? I mean, yesterday he said, straighten out quickly. But I mean, do we have an update on sort of what that means and what that new deadline could look like?
I won't set a deadline for the president. It's only for him to do that. But what I can tell you is that Steve Woodcock and Jared Kushner, who deserve great credit for bringing this deal to a close, for getting the hostages out of Gaza in the first place, are actively working on this. They are continuing to discuss this with both sides to ensure that all of the bodies are found and returned. And, I speaking with them about this yesterday, I know there's been a lot of reporting about the slower pace of bodies being returned to Israel. These bodies, unfortunately, are very deep underground, and so it's going to take some time and some special equipment to actually retrieve these bodies and bring them back to Israel. And the administration is fully committed to helping all sides get that done. It was part of the deal, and we're going to see it through.
Thanks. Does the White House have a response to the court case that prevented your shutdown rifts going through? Does that take away the president's leverage to end the shutdown?
I'm so glad you asked, because I have a very strong response. This is another far-left partisan judge who was smacked down by the Supreme Court in July for ruling on this exact same thing. In May, this judge tried to say that the President of the United States does not have the executive authority to hire and fire in the executive branch. Literally, nobody would ever try to make that argument except for someone who is extremely partisan. And of course, the Supreme Court rejected that ruling in July, and they said, no, the president does have the ability and the legal authority to fire people from the federal government. That is a responsibility of his job as the head of the executive branch. And so you have the same judge going back to the bench and ruling on the basis of politics. We are 100% confident we will win this on the merits of the law, and these layoffs are an unfortunate consequence of the government shutdown. We are now on day 16 of this Democrat shutdown. Democrats just voted again for the 10th time to keep the government closed and to keep the American people hostage. And we're seeing the consequences of it every day. We've had thousands of flights delayed and canceled. Air traffic controllers, TSA agents continue to work without pay. The president tapped into tariff revenue to keep WIC money for women and infants and children going out the door. The president, it found a creative solution to keep the troops paid. And rather than congratulate the president for doing that, this unprecedented action to get our troops paid, the Democrats want to sue him for it. They're saying that it's illegal. This just shows they don't care about the people who are hurting. They are shutting down the government purely for partisan politics because they don't like Donald Trump. And the only people that are suffering from that are federal government employees who are being laid off from their jobs, who are not being paid for their jobs, our military, our federal law enforcement, and the American people who can't catch a plane with holiday season coming up because flights are being delayed and canceled. Democrats need to do the right thing. And I don't know if you guys caught the CNN town hall last night with AOC and Bernie Sanders, but I sure did. And it's very clear that they are now the leaders of the Democrat Party. And the Democrats are in complete disarray. And we hope a few moderate Democrats with some common sense will step up to the plate and do the right thing to vote to open the federal government.
Thank you, Caroline.
Caroline, can we talk about
And our many thanks to the superstar Caroline Leavitt, the White House press secretary, detailing what's upcoming. And upcoming in roughly 36 minutes from now, President Trump to be with Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. discussing IVF treatments and how it relates to HHS. We look forward to that discussion coming up at 3 o'clock. A hot topic, a controversial topic, but one where we will see some announcements on that specifically. In addition to that, our thoughts and prayers with the Kennedy clan as they said goodbye to Joan Kennedy, the ex-wife of the late Ted Kennedy, the liberal lion of the United States Senate. So is Bobby Kennedy Jr.'s uncle and aunt, and he served as a pallbearer over the weekend at her funeral in Boston, Massachusetts, as we await President Trump to make an announcement with the good secretary of HHS. We thank mypillow.com/RSBN. 6-piece towel sets are back in stock. They normally go for $70 down to under $40, $39.98, a very limited quantity. Call today. Do not delay. It's 836-7566, mypillow.com/RSBN. Support Mike Lindell and Right Side Broadcasting Network by shopping now at RSB Network. And that can be found at mypillow.com/RSBN. Did you know that there are over 2,000 products right there at mypillow.com/RSBN? The 6-piece towel set going fast, back in stock for about half of what it normally costs. And these towels work. And let me tell you, for a great night's rest or an even better morning, get these amazing products here at mypillow.com. From the MyPillow 1.0, the 2.0, to themed pillows and bed sheets that are really quite comfortable. The Giza Dream Sheets coming from the Mediterranean. Of course, everything made right here in the manufacturing facilities of MyPillow in the great state of Minnesota. They also have My Coffee, delicious blends, and My Slippers that are quite comfortable as well, amongst many other different apparel and evening and morning use to get your days and nights even better than they were before. He's the purveyor of free speech, defender of election integrity, and a great all-around guy. President Trump calls him the master marketer, and heck, he might even be the next governor of Minnesota. Support Mike Lindell at mypillow.com/RSBN. If you like what you see with our go-to live desk, really your go-to live desk, this is our movement. Support us here at Right Side Broadcasting Network at rsbnetwork.com/donate. You may also text RSBN to 801-801. There's also an address for check and money order at 1550 Opelika Road, Suite 6. That's box 344, the loveliest village on the plains. 1550 Opelika Road, Suite 6, box 344, Auburn, Alabama, 36830. Thank you for your support on the right side of history. Let's take a quick commercial break for sponsorships, and we'll be right back with you here on Right Side Broadcasting Network. Do not change that dial. It's a gorgeous day in America. We'll be right back with you on the other side.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First News. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed. So join us and be part of the right side of history.
Hey y'all, it's Silk from the Diamond and Silk Chit Chat live show. Look, don't forget to check me out right here on RSBN Network. Be sure to watch the show on Right Side Broadcasting Network, and I want you to support Right Side Broadcasting Network. Yes, it's imperative that you do so, okay? I look to see y'all soon. Bye-bye.
allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. You can scan that QR code now, RSBN10. That is the code, easy to remember, for 10% off. This is ivermectin, hydrochloroquine, antibiotics that will save you and yours from bacterial and viral infections, NAD+, and much, much more. 200 essential medications and emergency medical kits, the meds you trust delivered to your door.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic...
Trump, who will be giving
Welcome
an announcement
to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA...
Welcome back to Right Side Broadcasting Network Live, as President Trump will make an announcement at the top of the hour, and that's regarding the IVF treatments. We know that's been a rather controversial discussion here in America, something that I can understand on really both sides of the aisle, something that the administration has wanted to leave really to individuals, couples, their doctors regarding that. But some developments there. Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. will be there for that announcement. Not exactly sure what it's detailing exactly, but we'll see what the president and the good secretary have to say regarding IVF treatment here in the United States. We know that the Southern Baptist Convention coming together roughly in the last year to oppose some of the practices of IVF, given that abortions can take place, or at least the destruction or the not fully coming to term of a life, given the practice of that. But we also do know, too, that pregnancy is something that many couples want to achieve. And because of toxins in the environment, whether it be in the land, in the water, also in the air, and from microplastics to what we showcase here on the network about making America healthy again with red dyes, with food ingredients that are foreign to the body and the brain can't register and recognize or even digest. You look at all the seed oils, we've had issues with infertility here in America. And the problem is that every family is producing roughly 1.6 children in the United States right now. That birth rate has to be at least over that average number of 2. People are having less and less children for various reasons. People getting older, are married much older. Also, what comes with that, not necessarily being able to have as many kids. Of course, it all individually affects people on that individual basis. So we'll see what happens here with President Trump's announcement regarding that very precious IVF treatment that is near and dear to many people's hearts, and not necessarily a conservative or liberal issue, but one that hits those close to home, given that how many couples want to have children and in some cases cannot for various reasons. And I think that's the true tragedy if you look at a situation like the abortion movement in America. This is the anniversary, October 16th of 1916, where Margaret Sanger opened her first birth control clinic in Brooklyn, New York, but you might as well call it Birth Control New York because of what she did back on October 16th of 1916. She was a eugenicist. She was a racist. She's someone that Hillary Clinton said she admires most. Really a disgusting human being who was the female version of Hitler. If you disagree with me, feel free to write in if you wish to opine at feedback@rsbn.tv, because her practices helped lead to a sexual revolution in the 60s that really has been trying to attack the family. And that's in essence what the far left is trying to do. Take away the influence of those kitchen counter, dinner table items and issues that even President Reagan spoke on in the 80s, that all great things that happen in America start right there at the kitchen table. Our late great friend Charlie Kirk honored this week with the Medal of Freedom, the highest civilian honor in America, talking about that issue on college campuses throughout the country. And just as the Democrats continue to lie about voter ID and how hard it is to obtain, although we use an ID for 30 plus different things on a daily basis in this country, somehow for some people, according to them, it's hard to obtain a driver's license. It's a bizarre theory, and they use the same argument when it comes to access to reproductive care, as they put it, access to birth control. Last time I checked, it's not very expensive down the street, and that's each and everyone's individual choice to use. But to use abortion solely as a birth control, and we've seen that post Roe v. Wade, is something that is utterly tragic, and it leaves families destroyed. It leaves especially the black community losing millions of children in that process. It's a number we can't necessarily even wrap our mind around, and truly the civil rights issue of our time is twofold. It's the free speech to speak up and not be canceled, mixed with that of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, something that our founders put into place 250 years ago. We have to defend it, and at all costs in order to make America great again. Thank you to CovePure.com/RSBN. It is $200 off right now of this reverse osmosis system that is changing lives. Let me tell you why. Well, look at its size, for example. You probably have a coffee machine that is that size, if not smaller, right there on your kitchen counter. This Clearwave technology leading in reverse osmosis technology, because JAMA Pediatrics did a study that if students in your household, mostly the children in your home, drinking from that tap water on a regular basis, they can lose over 2 points in their IQ as a result of doing just that. Utah, Florida, other states and governors joining Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. to make America healthy again, introducing legislation to get the fluoride, the pesticides, agricultural runoff out of the water, hormone blockers like birth control as well, because water treatment plants can't filter out 100% of what the impurities have and exist in the water supply. Remember Flint, Michigan, the lead from those pipes that are older than your grandparents. Democrat infrastructure failing these cities across the country. So protect what matters most. Drink Pure, Live Pure with CovePure.com/RSBN. $200 off now. Scan that QR code there for the leading Clearwave technology in reverse osmosis systems. It's CovePure.com/RSBN. And Perplexity has a new AI web-powered browser for you. Perplexity leading the way on this. It's called Comet. Unlock 1 month free of Rumble Premium. And that's a great idea because we stream there, so you might as well check out Rumble and all of the amazing things that they have to offer. Browse at the speed of thought with Comet. pplx.ai/RSBN. It's pplx.ai/RSBN. So let's take a moment to think about where you might be with your business. You're on the East Coast. You have business partners all the way on the West Coast. 3 hours separating you. And you're going to Austin, Texas next week to prepare for that big AI tech conference right around the bend. But you want to find the best Tex-Mex in Austin, Texas. Lots of good locations. Why not have a personal assistant that can research this, book this for you, send all of those updates via email to your business partners, and then you have no hassle and you can free up about 30 minutes of more time throughout the day to get those big tasks done. So think of Perplexity's Comet as that AI-powered personal assistant right there in your web browser because it does what a human does faster and also with more efficiency. So instead of taking 30 minutes or 3 hours to do all of those extra tasks, you can turn into seconds and send all that information out there, not only to make that reservation, but to send it out to your business partners. It's pplx.ai/RSBN, speed of thought, crucial in this day and age. So browse at it with Comet from Perplexity, our newest sponsor here on the right side of history. Now, in case you missed last night, President Trump showcased an outstanding architectural tour of what will happen not only to the White House, but an arch on the Memorial Bridgeway from Arlington. That was once cut off due to the Civil War, and you could see in the District of Columbia as it overlooks Arlington National Cemetery, that used to be the home and the plantation of Confederate General Robert E. Lee. So it just shows you how close the conflict was, and although you had to take a horse and buggy back in the day from Washington, D.C. to Richmond, Virginia, the capital of the Confederacy at the time, shows you how close this division was between the North and the South, as America could have changed forever based on that bloody battle and war between 1861 into 1865. Even for a brief period of time, the Southern White House right here in the Yellowhammer state of Alabama, not too far from Auburn, just a 45-minute drive where you can view that token piece of history. As we await President Trump to make an announcement at the top of the hour with Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. regarding IVF treatment and how the government will continue or not continue in regards to those fundings and discoveries. We'll see what they have to say. Nothing across the board or channels yet regarding the specifics, but we know this has been a hot hot item issue and discussion within the United States of America. Also happening last night in regards to that architectural tour that was brought to you by the donors that were sitting right there, these good people. It's so funny that certain networks are questioning who's going to pay for this. And we saw these arches right on the Resolute desk, as well as one of the fake news anchors was asking President Trump regarding what those were exactly. And they were reporting that they don't know how that's going to be funded. Well, they could look in the room last night. That's how it's going to be funded, through private donations. And the Clinton News Network decided to continue to distract as parallel broadcasting. One network had a great town hall last night. I give them a lot of credit for bringing people like Senator John Fetterman in, a friend of ours, Congressman Jim Jordan, as well, amongst others, to have a discussion with right and left America on how to come together on a various list of topics. I did not agree with everything, but I enjoyed that viewing and watching what they had to contribute. But at the same time, the Clinton News Network stunt failed the American people, trying to distract from their shutdown stranglehold now in day 16 due to Palestinian Senator Chuck Schumer and leader Hakeem Jeffries, both of New York City, both trying to run and flee from Mamdani, the communist Democrat nominee for New York City mayor, who's been endorsed by Governor Kathy Hochul. And let's be honest about this. The only reason that Chuck Schumer wants to shut down the government is because he's afraid of AOC challenging him in the United States Senate. So, Mr. Schumer, it's time to step aside. It's time for term limits. It's time for some humility. You've been in office longer than I've been alive. It's time to put our military first. It's time to put public employees first. The other network that you were in parallel with actually showcased someone who was a transit authority member who gets that public employee paycheck. He's trying to find how to fund his family and put dinner on the table for his daughter, but now has to do Uber Eats and things of that nature in order to fund his family. So as we break down what happened on the Clinton News Network last night, thank you to Kalshi.com/RSBN. Who will get Bitcoin? I think I will join in the chorus of those guessing whether or not this hits 150K before March or February or even January. Will Andrew Cuomo become New York City's mayor and display perhaps the second greatest political comeback in recent years outside of President Trump? Scan that QR code there now. Trade on anything. How about those Los Angeles Dodgers? Will they repeat in the World Series championship, just as the Florida Panthers did for the NHL hockey, and who will get invited to the White House as a result of that? We know President Trump loves sports, but Kalshi.com, they break down all of those trades and those bets, whether it's music, sports, to politics, the culture as a whole. It's right there for you at Kalshi.com/RSBN. And angelpaste.com, one of my favorites here at the network. You see me use the original Vitamin B Miracle Cream. Great this time of year. It gets dry around here. I'm sure it gets dry in your neck of the woods with the cooler temperatures. So that helps with keeping your skin glowing as you continue to paint the town red. The orange option, vitamin C infused, again, non-GMO, no chemicals, with a natural facial spray, mosquito repellents, among hundreds of options right there at the miracle that is angelpaste.com. They are Christian-owned. They hire veterans. They're based out of Spring, Texas, in the Lone Star State, off of the Gulf of America. Have you got your hat and shirt for the Gulf of America? One of my favorite moments from earlier this year, President Trump saying, this should be the Gulf of America. It's within the North American continent. It only makes sense. So angelpaste.com, I know they agree. Experience the miracle today with hundreds of options to keep your skin glowing and ready for that first date or maybe that 50th wedding anniversary, regardless of what it is. Angelpaste.com, right there for you. Experience the miracle today. Again, angelpaste.com, out of Spring, Texas, Christian-owned. They hire veterans. They're all American. Thank you to angelpaste.com. Roughly 15 minutes from now, President Trump to give a speech with Secretary Kennedy on IVF. We'll watch that closely as the Clinton News Network putting together a town hall last night with those who are the true establishment now of the Democrat Party. They're communists, And last night's clown show, according to the White House, starring Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, our favorite communist, and crazy Bernie Sanders, was nothing more than a desperate smoke show, if you will, to hide the brutal reality of the Democrat shutdown. And make no mistake, Chuck Schumer and his band of obstructionists continue to gaslight the American people on orders from their radical left lunatics at the base of their party, who control their party, that deliberately shuttered the government to extort their socialist agenda at the expense of hardworking Americans. Now, President Trump has taken decisive action to ensure service members get paid, and critical nutrition access programs for low income, those women and children who need it most. Now, they will remain funded during this. And meanwhile, unhinged Democrats are threatening litigation rather than doing what they are elected to do. The hypocrisy knows no bounds, even as workers go unpaid and essential services grind to that halt. Now, as last night's spectacle only reinforced what the Palestinian senator and his hypocritical Democrats continue to do, they are showing what their goals really are. Democrats cannot reconcile their once strenuous objections to shutting down the government. Not only did crazy Bernie Sanders have no answer for why he previously called a government shutdown a serious and dangerous action we must prevent everything possible to do, he was left stuttering after a young man pointed out Chuck Schumer's blistering hypocrisy. And good on the young man for calling to task peacefully and patriotically the wild antics of the crazy senator from Vermont. And we'll actually see if we could share that clip because it was rather funny. But Democrats are only interested in blaming President Trump. Crazy Bernie predictably bashed President Trump with a bartender told him that she faces losing out on her dream home due to the Democrat shutdown and the inability to process her own USDA home loan. Now, AOC told a TSA employee, an essential worker who does not know when her next paycheck will come, that the next best thing that we can do is to reopen the government. What she didn't mention, however, was that only Democrats can make that happen. They filibustered this process within the United States Senate. A clean CR was passed out of the House, but the Senate folding on that and refusing to protect American workers. Now, they refuse to do so at least 10 times in a row now, as House Speaker Johnson and House Republican leadership aptly shared this morning, but Democrats can't explain why they're holding government funding or an offer of any solution to the chaos they've unleashed. The pair all but admitted they have no substantive answer on what exactly Democrats are demanding while they refuse to fund essential government services. When air traffic controllers asked how Democrats expect them to pay for food when they aren't receiving a paycheck, AOC ranted without saying anything. Democrats really are completely unhinged. It's very sad to see in this day and age. I thought they were for the little guy. I thought they were for the public employee worker, but that's clearly not the case anymore. Thank you to our sponsors here on the right side of history. It's that time of year again, and we know how this story goes when cold and flu season hits. And you think you just have a couple of sniffles that turns into the rest of the household getting sick. And allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN can lead the way for you with 10% off. RSBN 10. Get Tamiflu, ivermectin, antibiotics, antivirals, and much, much more for that 10% off mark. And yes, this year we're already seeing the flu and COVID and so many other things strike the American people. It's climbing fast right now, all of these rates. And where does that leave urgent care to different pharmacies, also the doctor's offices? Well, they get full as a result. So prepare for cold and flu season with the go-to online family pharmacy, whether it is 48 hours from now or not long thereafter. 200 plus life-saving medications and emergency medical kits can be there for you today at allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. Prepare for cold and flu season with code 10% off with RSBN10. That's RSBN10. Scan the QR code there now. Also, parasite cleanses, good for this time of year with ivermectin and generic off-label usage. We have the right to try. We also have favored nation status with President Trump's work to bring down the cost of generics and prescriptions. Well, if you have no insurance, no problem at all. No hassle, no red tape, no bureaucracy. It's allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. And also thank you to Crypto.com. This is a $6.4 billion deal through Yorkville Acquisition Group and Trump Media Group, known as the inventors of Truth Social. You might have heard of it, a great app to hear from not only the president, but countless patriots out there in the Twitter sphere. Crypto.com joining today for the biggest CRO in history. Get in on the action. Crypto.com. Again, Yorkville Acquisition Group partnering with Crypto.com and the Trump Media Group to bring a CRO strategy unlike any other. A $6.4 billion deal in this bull market. Let's get into crypto. Let's do it now. You can partake with these crypto coins at Crypto.com today. And thank you also to Chapter that is fighting hard for our Medicare patients out there in America. Because for many in the audience, if you're 64 or older, some will scam you. Some will mean nonstop robocalls, junk mail, and spam texts that ultimately don't lead to the correct Medicare to-do list. So do not delay. Call today, 833-438-3359. It's Chapter. The truth is Medicare is confusing enough in its promise. Some plans even drop those senior citizens on a regular basis. And then again, you're dealing with plans that cost too much to cover or too little, and you get backed up on the current 2026 options, let alone, again, all the spamming, the false calls, and the texts that lead you to nowhere. That's where Chapter comes in. Chapter doesn't work with big government or big companies. They're independent. They stay away from those insurance scandals that can lead to issues with your Medicare. They're the only advisors who compare every Medicare plan nationwide to find the one that fits your preferences. So again, call today. Do not delay. Compare every single Medicare plan out there. Knock out that to-do list. It takes under 20 minutes to review your options for 2026. On average, Chapter saves each customer up to $1,100. 833-438-3359. It's Chapter. Knock out that Medicare to-do list today. Compare every plan and get ready for 2026. As we're minutes away from President Trump and Secretary Kennedy to make an announcement regarding IVF treatment and studies from Health and Human Services. We will take a quick commercial break for more sponsors. Don't change that dial. You're with Right Side Broadcasting Network, the live desk that's working overtime for you. We'll see you back in a moment.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First News. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed. So join us and be part of the right side of history.
Hey y'all, it's Silk from the Diamond and Silk Chit Chat live show. Look, don't forget to check me out right here on RSBN Network. Be sure to watch the show on Right Side Broadcasting Network, and I want you to support Right Side Broadcasting Network. Yes, it's imperative that you do so, okay? I look to see y'all soon. Bye-bye.
allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. You can scan that QR code now, RSBN10. That is the code, easy to remember, for 10% off. This is ivermectin, hydrochloroquine, antibiotics that will save you and yours from bacterial and viral infections, NAD+, and much, much more. 200 essential medications and emergency medical kits. The meds you trust delivered to your door. Welcome back to Right Side Broadcasting Network. President Trump will have an announcement at the top of the hour. We will bring you right there in the next few minutes on a gorgeous day in the federal city and an illustrious setting, truly. I'm excited to see what ultimately happens, not only to the mall, but the lead up from over the Potomac River in Virginia to Washington, D.C. with the Golden Arches. No, not McDonald's, but President Trump's own take as a builder and developer on what's happening, all privately funded. Exciting time to see this country flourish under President Trump's leadership. And specifically, every president gets those moments, as he was aptly discussing yesterday, really in detail in regards to the Truman balcony, to the Nixon bowling alley, and the putting greens out there, thanks to Dwight D. Eisenhower, the gym, and also the playground out there from President Obama when the kids were in office with him. It's always nice to have young families in the White House, regardless of political party, because it brings life to it all. Nice to see the families when they are there, including when weddings do happen there. I believe the last one was actually a year or so ago under President Biden, a grand son, I believe, if not the granddaughter, getting married there on the grounds. And then way back when it was President Nixon's daughter. So it's always a wonderful time to celebrate family at the White House, as it was a family affair on Tuesday for Charlie Kirk's birthday, what would have been his 32nd, receiving the Medal of Freedom. And we know that that was an amazing sight to see from Erica Kirk, her strength in everything, and the fact that she mentioned that Charlie became too large for this earth, that a free man became fully free in heaven, and that liberty itself really cannot stand without moral responsibility, something that Charlie deeply believed in. And we're seeing that play out here in America in 2025, as those in office are truly driven by their belief in God. And Vice President J.D. Vance mentioning that at the very first Charlie Kirk show without Charlie from the ornate vice president's office a couple of weeks ago, stating that he's never talked so much about Jesus since Charlie's untimely passing. And it's good to see that in government. Have we ever heard it that much? I mean, going back to September 21st with the rally, the service, really, the memorial service at State Farm Stadium in Glendale, Arizona. How many countless people have come together in government to talk about their faith and wanting to share that with people in their everyday lives. It's inspiring. As we thank Monetary Gold for wealth and preservation, the securities that will stand the test of time. They have throughout human history. So grab gold and silver right now. It's a bull market for it as the dollar continues to weaken, as the BRICS nations continue to try to get the world off of the dollar as the world reserve currency. So where does that leave you in diversification, whether it's generational wealth to buying that first property? Grab that complimentary presidential gold guide, and the team of experts here at Monetary Gold will walk you through that. Call today. Don't delay. It's 888-617-7994. RSBN4thegold.com. RSBN4thegold.com. Ask how to eliminate those IRA fees permanently and for life. 888-617-7994. RSBN4thegold.com. Thank you for sponsoring us on the right side of history. And again, it's that time of year with allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. Whether it's the cold, fever, flu, COVID, whatever it is, it does happen this fall season. And when someone's sick in the house, It ends up being over half the house is sick as a result. We know how that goes. So we get Tamiflu, ivermectin, antibiotics, NAD+, methylene blue, and much, much more. In fact, over 200 essential medications and emergency medical kits with no red tape, no bureaucracy, just on time and under budget, right to try with a favored nation status to bring down the costs of not only generics, but big pharmaceuticals. Scan that QR code there now. RSBN 10, RSBN 10, 10% off. It's ivermectin, it's hydrochloroquine, NAD+, methylene blue, Tamiflu. So important to have. And you don't want to be the last in line, because if you have to rush to the urgent care or a pharmacy when you don't have all these life-saving medications stocked up in your medicine cabinet, what are you to do? But you could take these on the road with you as well. They fit in well on your fall foliage travels across the country. So again, no red tape, no bureaucracy, just doctors, pharmacists, nurses who care about you, the American people. allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN, code RSBN10, 10% off now. Scan that QR code there at 3 o'clock on the East Coast. It's high noon on the Golden West Coast. Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network. I'm Robert McNeely. Always a joy to be with you here at the live desk as we await President Trump making an announcement momentarily. The press pool is in the West Wing, and we await a live shot there for you to bring you truly unbridled access to your government. That's our mission here at this live desk. Every speech, every press conference, everything regarding the 45th and 47th President of the United States, the First Lady, the 50th Vice President of the United States, and his glorious Second Lady. What a first and second couple we have, who recently enjoyed some dinner at the Naval Observatory, the residence of the Vice President. And again, with you, the 119th Congress that sadly is in day 16 of the Chuck Schumer Senate shutdown. Yes, it was the filibuster. I thought they were against the filibuster. I thought they wanted to take the filibuster. Oh, but I remember a recent time they used the filibuster. Yes, civil rights in 1964. It was the Democrats who attempted to block that, but Republican-led movement, and ultimately being signed by a Democrat president by surprise. But it could have been a mix of things, whether the horror in Selma, Alabama, to Martin Luther King's persistence in the Oval Office. Johnson coming around also. We know what he said that I won't repeat because it was ghastly, that a group of people would be voting Democrat for over 200 years, alleging that false theory on the big switch. It was Democrats who attempted to block civil rights in the United States Senate. And again, Democrats who refuse to give paychecks to hardworking Americans and those that need it, especially in our military, especially our air traffic control, especially those on the SNAP and welfare benefits, especially single moms out there who are looking for a way to put dinner on the table for their children. So shame on you, Chuck Schumer, all to attempt to seek re-election because of your radical base and because you know that an electoral threat coming from AOC and crazy Bernie Sanders, the far left Democrat socialists, the communists that are focused on a complete takeover of the Democrat Party and ultimately a controlled economy coming from the top down, government control, something that we've fought against as a free enterprise nation since our very foundation and existence. And Secretary Besson speaking on this just yesterday in regards urging those moderate Democrats to reach across the aisle to come with Republicans who have passed a clean CR out of the House, just to keep the government open for 7 weeks. Then everything can be debated. It's rather common sense, and any fair-minded person looking at this can see that it's all on Chuck Schumer and his failure of leadership. Sometimes it's a mix of both parties, and I am always open to criticizing Republicans when they're wrong over a plethora of issues. That's not the case here. House Republican leadership has been steadfast to get this done. It was a majority of Republicans in the Senate trying to push this over the top, but you need that 60-vote threshold, and Democrats taking advantage of that in this very moment. So we'll see what happens there. as we hope to see the government reopen, billions and billions of dollars being wasted as a result. But fortunately with Russell Vought, who's doing an amazing job at OMB, can potentially make this a Doge 2.0 and trim the fat some more. Regarding Democrats, it's interesting how they claim to be anti-Doge, but then they're actually helping out the Doge efforts in this moment to see the other things that are unnecessary in government, or those who are double dipping or taking advantage of the system. And that's why you can have a chorus of people who are deep staters or government bureaucrats who want to cry over this because things have changed. We have business people who know a thing or two about presenting a healthy budget to their board of directors or to their stock and bond holders, also to those philanthropists that keep them going, whether it's the nonprofit world to private business to public entities. You have common sense in this cabinet once again, and that's a very good thing to see in our nation's capital, as President Trump should be in moments giving an announcement regarding Health and Human Services, Secretary Kennedy there with him as well. Thank you to mypillow.com/RSBN. The 6-piece towel set back in stock, normally going for $70, now down to under $40 at $39.98. A very limited quantity. Call today. Do not delay. It's 800-836-7566. MyPillow.com/RSBN. Support Mike Lindell and Right Side Broadcasting Network. You can shop now at MyPillow.com/RSBN. Save with code RSBN. Over 2,000 products right there at MyPillow.com/RSBN. A great place to look for an even better evening and a crisp morning. MyPillow.com/RSBN. Thank you to Mike Lindell, who is from the great state of Minnesota. And wherever you're watching from today, whether it be stateside or abroad, we are grateful for your donations here on the Right Side of History. We're taking on legacy media that is very anti-American at times and sometimes actually fabricates truth when they're putting out their opinions, and they call it cold, hard fact when it's not the case. Right here, we analyze. We're on the right side of history. We're unafraid and unapologetic in supporting President Trump, but we showcase the speeches, the press conferences, everything right there for you. And when we get out there in the field, we talk to you right there, the American people, whether it be at a rally or at a diner, wherever it might be in this grand land of ours, our constitutional republic standing the test of time. RSBnetwork.com/donate. You may text RSBN to 801-801 as well for those donations. For check or money order, 1550 Opelika Road, Suite 6, Box 344. It's 1550 Opelika Road, Suite 6, Box 344. The loveliest village on the plains, Auburn, Alabama, 36830. Again, 1550 Opelika Road, Suite 6, Box 344. Auburn, Alabama, 36830. Thanks for your support here on Right Side Broadcasting Network in order to get the truth out to you, to be on the correct side of history, the right side of history, but to bring you access to what's happening in your federal city, inside and outside of the Beltway on a daily basis. We appreciate your support here at Right Side Broadcasting Network. It's 3:07 on the East Coast, 12:07 on the West Coast, awaiting President Trump and an announcement with Health and Human Services. So we'll take you right there to the White House when that does happen. Also, President Trump to meet with President Vladimir Putin of Russia in Budapest, Hungary. We will see that as they had a phone conversation earlier today regarding terms. Also, the Maduro regime, accused of countless narco trafficking. We've seen those boats destroyed in international waters thanks to the United States Coast Guard. President Trump stating that he did authorize CIA involvement in Venezuela. The United States government does not recognize the current fake government that is there, the puppet government in that regime of Maduro in Venezuela. We pray for the peace of the Venezuelan people. It's a wonderful culture, just tremendous people. And we've interviewed those who are fighting for that liberty every single day. And the main opposition leader receiving that Nobel Peace Prize, dedicating it to President Trump just this week. Now, as that escalates potentially, we do watch as $40 billion pledged to Argentina as well. Javier Milei, the president, the right-wing populist and friend of President Trump, was at the White House this week. Also encouraging on Tuesday President Trump to come for a visit in Argentina. He said, "I'm very busy. I'd love to. We'll see what happens there." But we see that the Trump administration looks to provide an additional $20 billion in financing to Argentina on top of the $20 billion commitment already made. So we'll watch all of that as another round of No Kings protests set to hit a city near you on October 18th, and President Trump poking them and having fun. I remember the Facebook poke to get someone's attention. It's somewhat similar on Truth Social, stating that, "Thank you for making me aware that there's a king trying to overthrow me," of course being in jest of the No Kings protest. But this is my question for the No Kings folks out there who are heavily funded by Antifa and George Soros types, those open society groups that seek to overthrow the United States government, who are actually the fascists of all this. It's the irony in their name. They call themselves anti-fascists, but they use fascist tactics, stating that President Trump is this king somehow. If he was a king, why does he work so hard with Congress? Why does he have to consult them so often? He could just do whatever he wishes to do. And, once you go on your diatribe about, the National Guard and ICE and this, that, and the other, he has the legal authority to do so. The last time it was authorized was dating back to the 1992 Los Angeles riots. I've had conversations online about this. I've had conversations with Republican Democrats, everywhere in between. President Trump is right to make these authorizations to protect the American people when governors and mayors refuse to do that for their cities, period. And it's rarely done. I'd be more concerned about those arguably illegal engagements in wartime abroad. We have not declared war since World War II. So the Congress responsible for this as well, abridging and getting away from its constitutional authorities in Article 1. There was the authorization, that vote by the auto pen, amongst others, including crooked Hillary Clinton when they were senators, to authorize the Iraq invasion. But there was no declaration of war, hence technically illegal. You have a legal argument for that. There's also the drone strikes on American citizens who fought for the Taliban under the Barack Hussein Obama administration. I'd be more concerned about drone strikes attacking American citizens abroad than I would about Tom Homan and a group of heroes literally securing the borders through DHS, through the work of the Department of Justice, stopping narco trafficking through our military. It's been a coalition of the willing, and as Governor Glenn Youngkin of the Commonwealth of Virginia spoke to it so plainly, at least I now have a partner in the White House to get all this done to protect people from fentanyl poisoning. Think about this for a moment. Sebastian Gorka, a great special assistant to President Trump, and actually a real doctor, unlike Jill Biden, detailed at the Heritage Foundation's conference recently that 108 United States service personnel, members of the military, perished, sadly, from the end of World War II into our most recent engagements. It's a staggering number, whether it be the drafts of Korea and Vietnam, all the way up to the recent war on terror, 108,000. Now, in the sophomore year of the Auto Pen administration, 120,000 Americans, citizens, died of fentanyl poisoning, mostly young people. We've had people like Ann Funder on here, just a gorgeous, articulate, stupendous mother losing really the pride and joy in her eyes, her son, to fentanyl poisoning. That's why there's all these warnings out there to talk to your kids about simple over-the-counter drugs and prescriptions, something as simple as Tylenol that you might accept from a friend. It might be laced with fentanyl as a result of all this drug trafficking. Now, that has slowed down since we now have a secure border under the Trump administration, but it remains true. Going back to March 5th of that address to Congress, joint session of Congress, that President Trump said there was no further needed legislation. You just need to change your president because he allowed millions, over 15 million, in fact, Joe Biden, to pour into this country illegally. And Alejandro Mayorkas, as Secretary Kristi Noem has mentioned at DHS, I don't know how he sleeps at night, her predecessor, because he knew he broke the law. And it's good to see that people are coming to justice, liberty and justice for all in this country. As James Comey, the corrupt FBI director of yesteryear, pleading not guilty to 2 indictments. We'll see what happens there. And then nearly 300 FBI agents allegedly at the January 6th protest. Christopher Wray has a lot of explaining to do, as we once had very corrupt institutions now being cleansed peacefully and patriotically with the great leadership within this cabinet. And remember back on that joint session of Congress back on March 5th, these are the same Democrats who are shutting down this government on day 16 who did not stand for DJ Daniel, who was honorably sworn in, not only by hundreds of police departments across the country, including his hometown of Houston, but sworn in by Secret Service Director Sean Curran, the hero of July 13th in Butler, Pennsylvania, and the personal bodyguard of President Trump. With that warm hug, there wasn't a dry eye in the House. Democrats could not stand for that young boy who seeks to give hope, who's battling brain cancer as we speak on this very issue now. They are showing their true colors, but we'll keep on keeping on, and we'll keep bringing it to you. Right Side of History, it's the correct place to be right here at Right Side Broadcasting Network. Let's take a quick commercial break for sponsorships. President Trump will make an announcement soon. Stick with us here at Right Side Broadcasting Network. Don't change that dial. We hope you're having a wonderful Thursday. On the other end of this, President Trump.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First News. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed. So join us and be part of the right side of history.
Hey y'all, it's Silk from the Diamond and Silk Chit Chat live show. Look, don't forget to check me out right here on RSBN Network. Be sure to watch the show on Right Side Broadcasting Network, and I want you to support Right Side Broadcasting Network. Yes, it's imperative that you do so, okay? I look to see y'all soon. Bye-bye.
allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. You can scan that QR code now, RSBN10. That is the code, easy to remember, for 10% off. This is ivermectin, hydrochloroquine, antibiotics that will save you and yours from bacterial and viral infections, NAD+, and much, much more. 200 essential medications and emergency medical kits, the meds you trust delivered to your door. Welcome back to Right Side Broadcasting Network. President Trump making an announcement soon. We'll take you right there to the West Wing as that is underway momentarily. And President Trump having a busy day as always, really. I mean, when does the man stop? But a phone call with President Putin. They will be meeting in Budapest, Hungary, and Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt from that podium earlier today, detailing all of that for the future, amongst other issues facing the administration. And we look forward to that bilateral meeting between the two leaders tomorrow. Stay tuned for President Zelensky of the Ukraine will return once again to the White House to meet with President Trump on a very nimble manner. That is the Russian-Ukraine war. So let's break down this 4D chess that we have right now. dating back to Trump Turnberry at Scotland, President Trump with the new $600 billion deal between the European Union and the United States. And Ms. van der Leyen, the president of the European Union, admitting that over the years, the European Union taking advantage of the markets of the United States. That 15% threshold of the tariff to enter United States markets remaining in place, in addition to a $720 billion oil and gas deal. So two major deals between the European Union and the United States during his summer trip to Trump Turnberry. So exciting for that to take place. Now, why does that matter? Because the AutoPen closed the Keystone Pipeline down. And the former communist governor of Canada, you might remember him, Justin Trudeau, on his knees begging the AutoPen to reopen that pipeline for Canadian and American jobs. When that happened at the same time, Nord Stream 2 put online within the first 6 months of the AutoPen administration. So then Germany, Belgium, the European Union threshold, the epicenter of where the power brokers are and the government bureaucrats, then beholden to Russia and their oil and their natural gas. In turn, China and Iran funding those projects because Russia getting their oil and natural gas from that. So then emboldened, Vladimir Putin goes in and invades the Ukraine. But things are different now under President Trump, and it's very clear by a couple of his recent posts regarding that. So in turn with that deal from back in the summer, less and less reliance upon the Russian oil and natural gas for the European Union, and in turn putting China and Iran back on the rope. So these complicated things that President Trump has done in less than 1 year in office. It's rather remarkable at the speed he's moved with an extraordinary, perhaps the best Secretary of State, Marco Rubio. Steve Witkoff is a Middle East envoy who's really just been the envoy for peace and securing hostages back from other entities, not only in the Middle East, but also Russia, that were literal slaves under the AutoPen because of the failures of the foreign diplomatic relations that we saw during the Biden tenure. Now, President Trump recently just posting over on Truth Social regarding some of those very issues that he's outraged by the International Maritime Organization voting in London this week to pass this global carbon tax. Speaking of energy schemes, the United States will not stand for this global green new scam tax on shopping and will not adhere to in any way, shape, or form. We will not tolerate increased prices on American consumers or the creation of a green new scam bureaucracy to spend your money on their green dreams. Now stand with the United States. Vote no in London tomorrow. So we'll watch all of that as it develops. As Rapid Response also putting out the latest from the Palestinian Senator Chuck Schumer of New York City, someone who tolerates the far leftist nonsense going on there from the leader of the United States Senate, who simply wants to be reelected and is willing to keep the United States hostage as a result of his need to be reelected, stating it's no King's Day. Do not be afraid of your right to free speech. Do not let Donald Trump or Republicans intimidate you into silence. Be proud that you are standing up for democracy. But Rapid Response stating that thousands of Americans missing paychecks as a result of this government shutdown. It really is lousy. And he truly is a pathetic disgrace to American democracy that they claim to uphold on a regular basis. And remember, that's their messaging. When they claim that democracy is under attack, it really means that they're having a temper tantrum that they do not want you to know about, that they want only their policies adhered to, that they want illegal aliens to have your hard-earned tax money through Medicare, through Social Security, through Medicaid. And again, you're seeing that there from Rapid Response, calling the Palestinian senator a pathetic disgrace. And right here at the live desk, I have to concur that that is the case, because it's always amplified by somehow Republicans taking away the freedom of speech. But those who would go to the No Kings rally, I applaud you for exercising that freedom of speech. But why? What king are you trying to prevent from overthrowing President Donald Trump? Because he is a president of a constitutional republic, not of a monarchy, not of a fiefdom, not of a dukedom, not of a kingdom. No, a constitutional American republic. And he has spoken to House and Senate leadership on a near daily basis, but you have one major party that refuses to reopen the government because they are afraid of a far left radical base in their party. And that's not opinion, it's abject fact as of now, given that the Republicans passed out of the House a very clean CR by all standards, by even the CBO, their scoring of all this, and something that we perhaps should not practice anymore, with CRs being passed time and again on a very regular basis since 1998. We need a break in that. We need actual decorum and a restoration of Robert's Rules of Order in the House and the Senate. The great Secretary of State Marco Rubio, during his tenure as a United States Senator from Florida, stated just that: to lose the great dialoguing body that is the United States Senate to these stupid games, these fake impeachments, a Russia hoax that we saw in the first term, and that some still perpetuate now, including Mr. Seashell himself down by the seashore, now indicted, James Comey pleading not guilty. Remember 8647? Why would you post something like that to threaten the President of the United States? Rather bizarre to see from deep state globalists, both with Republican and Democrat in name only, that truly do not represent you and me, we the people, fighting to make this constitutional republic the greatest it has ever been. As we await soon President Trump to make an announcement there in the West Wing, we're grateful for monetary gold, for wealth, for preservation, for securities. It's your retirement, it's your pensions, it's everything you worked hard for. You want to keep it, right? It makes sense, as gold and silver, especially silver, experiencing this bull market right now as the dollar weakens thanks to BRICS nations and other volatilities in the global market. Grab your complimentary presidential gold guide today. Call today. Do not delay. 888-617-7994. Ask how to eliminate your IRA fees permanently for life. RSBN4thegold.com. Yes, Robert Kiyosaki warning us here in the United States of bank failures, too, in fact, this year. Almost 500 under the Barack Hussein Obama tenure. So call immediately to discover how you can eliminate IRA fees permanently for life. RSBN4thegold.com. It's monetary gold. It's wealth security preservation, all in real time. Grab that complimentary presidential gold guide of a handsome gentleman himself, number 45 and 47. Presidential gold right there. Monetary gold, your go-to at RSBN4thegold.com. And it is, again, this time of year, cold, flu, COVID striking with a vengeance. And that son or daughter of yours, or you might have caught it from the office, get the sniffles, and all of a sudden it turns into much worse. So Tamiflu, ivermectin, hydrochloroquine, antibiotics, antivirals, NAD+, methylene blue, 200 essential medications, in fact, at allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. Code RSBN10. Scan that QR code there now. 10% off of these life-saving medications for you and yours. Something smart to do. No red tape, no bureaucracy, just life-saving medications right there to your door, right to try. Generics, off-label usage of things like ivermectin that you could use for parasite cleanses as well. We're also seeing with NAD+ and methylene blue that they can help with Alzheimer's and dementia, also sleep patterns, so you have a better night's rest. So again, no red tape, no bureaucracy. Doctors, nurses, and pharmacists that want you to have life-saving generic opportunities and to bring down the cost of pharmaceuticals. It's about time where the United States should manufacture all of our vitamins and minerals and life-saving meds right here in America. That's starting to happen now. But in the meantime, visit allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN for life-saving medication right there for you today. As we are getting to the bottom of the hour, we await President Trump as Caroline Leavitt, the superstar press secretary, announcing from that very microphone earlier today outside of the West Wing developments with meeting Russian President Vladimir Putin upcoming in Budapest, Hungary, a date to be set. President Trump having a productive phone meeting with the Russian premier today. And also President Vladimir Zelensky of the Ukraine to visit the White House tomorrow. But do not change that dial. Moments from now, President Trump will toss it there live to the White House and the West Wing specifically for a meeting regarding health, babies, IVF, and all the above. Updated breaking news from Health and Human Services. Secretary Kennedy will be on hand with the president as well. We'll take a quick commercial break at the bottom of the hour for sponsors. I'm Robert McNeely. It's a joy to be with you. It's Right Side Broadcasting Network. It's the go-to live desk. Don't change that dial. You're on the right side of history.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First News. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed. So join us and be part of the right side of history.
Hey y'all, it's Silk from the Diamond and Silk Chit Chat live show. Look, don't forget to check me out right here on RSBN Network. Be sure to watch the show on Right Side Broadcasting Network, and I want you to support Right Side Broadcasting Network. Yes, it's imperative that you do so, okay? I look to see y'all soon. Bye-bye.
allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. You can scan that QR code now, RSBN10. That is the code, easy to remember, for 10% off. This is ivermectin, hydrochloroquine, antibiotics that will save you and yours from bacterial and viral infections, NAD+, and much, much more. 200 essential medications and emergency medical kits, the meds you trust delivered to your door. Welcome back to Right Side Broadcasting Network. Some breaking news that the Trump administration announcing India buying oil, and that Prime Minister Modi pledged India will end Russian oil imports soon after the United States tariff pressure had threatened a move. It could tighten Moscow's revenues now. So that's very welcome news as the BRICS nations, again, how they've combined to attack the American dollar. And India, a friend of ours, has not always been great when it comes to trade, but under this president and Prime Minister Modi, they have a very strong relationship to end, again, those Russian imports, a huge development for the United States. So we'll remain watching that story as well as many others. President Trump to make an announcement regarding Health and Human Services soon. Again, Secretary Kennedy to join him in that. And if we remember, as most of us do, that this all began a couple of years ago as Mr. Kennedy launched a bid to win the Democrat nomination, seeking that as his father once did in 1968, and his uncle, the 35th president of the United States, but his party left him. They literally kicked him out. And for the third election in a row that we know of, the Democrat National Committee picking its winners and losers, not allowing you, the American people, to make that decision. And it's really remarkable because if you look at the breakdown of the definition of democrat, demos, the Greek root for that is of the people. And they have really turned on the people in day 16 of this government shutdown, thanks to the Palestinian senator from New York, Chuck Schumer, who President Trump was once very gracious to. President Trump used to donate to his campaigns, especially on those county board races when they were young men way back in the day. He's known him for over 40 years, and Something happened to Chuck, as President Trump put it, at the Al Smith dinner just last year around this time. And I remember, I think we were in Detroit, Michigan for a rally at that point in the Motor City, and grabbing some dinner the night before and watching the Al Smith dinner with one of my illustrious colleagues covering it that night in New York City. And I was just laughing and chuckling at how embarrassed it seemed that the Palestinian senator had become, because he sold his soul to government bureaucracy. He sold his soul to re-election. And that's why we need term limits in the Congress, folks. I think we are all agreeing upon that. Most states have found a way to implement some form of term limits and also balancing their budgets, unlike a government that is $37 trillion in debt, fastly going to $38 trillion on what looks to be a very windy day there in Washington, D.C., as we see the leaves blowing right on the North Lawn, where Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt announced this morning some developments within the administration, including an upcoming meeting between President Trump and President Putin. They met over the phone, so had that discussion this morning, and a bilateral meeting upcoming. Specific date and time to be announced in Budapest, Hungary, and I've heard that's a beautiful place to travel to. So a government that is really putting family first, talk about God, family, and country, right there in Hungary, reclaiming Western civilization and being a spot that saw so much of where East meets West, right there near Turkey, somewhere where so many consequential things do happen in the whole of human history. And tomorrow, President Zelensky of the Ukraine coming to the White House yet again for further discussions with President Trump. But in 8 months, we've had the settling of 8 different wars, from Israel and Hamas being most recent on Monday, to Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of the Congo, to Azerbaijan, Armenia, Cambodia, and Thailand. Also Israel and Iran, the 12 Days War with the B-2 bombers and the Tomahawks that followed to destabilize Tehran and its nuclear ambitions. Also seeing many other successes there, and all really done through trade, through dialogue, through the use of tariffs. So those who say that tariffs do not work are completely wrong in that. It's been proven that we could become wealthy once again, as we once were. Dating back to the 19th century, in 1886, these blue ribbon commissions being established by the United States government because we had too much money. We didn't know what to do with it. You might see a blue ribbon committee award for your local schools right there up on the wall with the presidential seal on the blue ribbon committee. It's a proud display to have. It means you have one of the best schools in your community, whether public or private, throughout this great nation of ours. But then the progressive movement happened in 1913, implementing the federal income tax, which is just bizarre at best. We were somehow able to survive as a republic from 1776 to 1913 without that federal income tax, and it's something that should be depleted and gotten rid of, as we're getting rid of that state income tax throughout the Southeast here. Tennessee doesn't have one. Florida doesn't have one. Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones of the Peach State of Georgia has pledged to see it through, as they've reduced the state income tax in Georgia, but ultimately wants to get rid of that. But the Lieutenant Governor having a lot of influence in that, and many people seeking that office in 2026 as well. So a story we will stay on right here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, because we believe that more of your hard-earned money in your pocket, not only good for the economy, but good for you, so that you can continue to pursue the American dream. Because let's be honest, things are getting a lot more expensive nowadays, and home ownership really at a historical low, but that seems to be changing, as a recent report sharing that some of those home prices going down slightly. And let's hope that does happen, as we've seen some of the biggest corporations in the world, including the likes of BlackRock, buying up properties and turning in this economy into a rental economy. And so many people having a hard time getting out of that in order for that American dream of home ownership. As we await President Trump to make an announcement on health and human services, he will be with his former rival and leader of the Maha movement, who have become really dear friends in this process, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Secretary of Health and Human Services, the once Democrat candidate turned into independent nominee for president, suspending his campaign and uniting that with President Donald Trump. If you remember that Turning Point Action rally, Charlie Kirk being one who really brought these two together in that moment, as Secretary Kennedy reflected on that in these nights of revival and these nights of remembrance that have taken place since his untimely death in a horrible assassination that should have never happened. Our thoughts and prayers continue to be with Charlie's family, the Kirk family, especially Erica. His name literally meant free man. It meant warrior. It meant church. He was a free man of the church, a warrior for the church. And may his life and legacy continue to inspire us, that highest civilian order, that award granted to him by the President of the United States, and a rather ornate, gorgeous ceremony in the new and improved Rose Garden, as President Trump is setting his sights on architectural prowess. And last night, in case you missed it, hosting a dinner in the East Room for those donors who want to beautify the White House, just as the president does as well. Really going into detail about the Art Deco bathroom the Trumans put in on the second floor that did not really match the 1850 style. So President Trump said, we're getting rid of it. We're going back to the original. And I really appreciate those stories. And if you're not one to subscribe to, and they haven't called ahead, they should sponsor us. Why not? But the White House Historical Association, great people who are responsible for the Christmas ornaments that you see on an annual basis at the White House, really working hard in conjunction with this administration, the First Lady's office, to continue that beautification, a nonpartisan organization, very passionate about the history of the White House, and something that I'm extremely passionate about as well, because ultimately there's no other address like it in the world. 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. It was built to welcome yet humble foreign heads of state. It was created as a personal residence, but also an office, a museum, and truly the people's house to come and break bread with their commander-in-chief. And now I know you can't do that today, but that north lawn right there, that door used to be wide open, and you walk into the front. This is before the East Wing and the West Wing constructions as we see it today, but that main original mansion on the first level there, Abraham Lincoln would have the door open, and people would come and schedule a time and walk right in the front door to meet the 16th President of the United States. And it's riddled with stories like that. If you go on the tour, it's really tremendous. Something you should take your young students, your kids, your grandkids to go and see, because it's living history in the front row. And every president since John Adams, residents of that fine address. The only one not a resident, the founder, the father truly of our country, General George Washington, the inaugural office holder, President of the United States, a title that is rarely obtained, and we've had some extraordinary ones. We've had some not so extraordinary ones, especially in the recent living predecessors of President Trump, who rather sought a neocon and neoliberal approach to governance and sold out America. They bankrupted Detroit. They bankrolled Beijing. But this president, through the protection of God, reversing all of that, putting America first in a right-wing populist movement that has united Republicans, Democrats, and independents alike as we the people versus a big, bloated government bureaucracy. President Trump to make an announcement very soon. We will see number 45 and 47 on this broadcast, getting close to a quarter to the 4 o'clock hour on the East Coast. A good afternoon to you, America, and hello to the world, wherever you might be watching, especially in the English-speaking world. Feel free to write in where you're watching from. Feedback at rsbn.tv, as we always love to be with you here on the right side of history. Now, this announcement will be focused on Health and Human Services activity in regards to healthy babies, creating more of them, the pure procurement, also the reproduction. Folks, we are under where we need to be as a civilization when it comes to the health of this country, specifically in having more children. We're at that rate of 1.6 per family right now. needs to be over 2 to sustain a country as large as ours. So as Charlie Kirk put it, we will honor him yet again. You really can never have a cap on honoring the late, great Charlie Kirk on tonight's Voice of Reason. Be sure to tune in at 6 o'clock. We'll detail what Turning Point USA put out, the 31 ways to honor Charlie the most. And part of that, number 6 and 7, is getting married, having kids, doing all of that. It's an important thing to do, something I hope to do one of these days, because it's about leaving a legacy and also following what God's plan is for your life. As he mentioned, he was much more interested in what God was interested in him doing rather than vice versa. Let's go there live now to the Oval Office, President Trump and staff there, to see what he's up to in the West Wing.
The phone call with President Putin was a very good call. Are you ready? Yes, sir. You all set? Let's go. Thank you very much. This is very exciting, what we're doing. I want to thank everybody for being here, and I want to thank this group of people. They're incredible people. We just had a call, as you know, with President Putin. I thought it was a very good call, so we'll talk about it maybe later. But it went very well. We're here today to announce a historic victory for American women, mothers, and families. With the actions I will outline this afternoon, will dramatically slash the cost of IVF and the treatment and many of the most common fertility drugs for countless millions of Americans. Prices are going way down, way, way down. I want to thank Libby Horn, who is the Senior Vice President of Fertility of EMD Serrano. So I want to thank you. Let's see here. That's what I thought. I thought it was you. Thank you, Libby, very much. And let me also thank the Secretary of Health and Human Services, Robert F. Kennedy, Jr., whose wife destroyed the people on The View yesterday. I have to say that. I'm not going to ever get into an argument with her. And you've decided, you learned that a long time ago, right? She did a great job, actually. Secretary of Commerce, Howard Lutnick. Thank you, Howard. Secretary of Labor, Lori Chavez de Rima. Thanks, Lori. Howard, thanks. CMS Administrator, Dr. Mehmet Oz, who's a fantastic guy, and he's done really well. FDA Commissioner Marty McCary. Thank you, Marty. Senator Katie Britt, who got me started with this whole thing when she called up to say there was a bad ruling by a judge, right? We got to do something, sir, and we did it very quickly. Probably in 24 hours it was done. Congressman Richard Hudson, a great guy, and his wife Renee. Richard, hi, Richard. And Advocate Samantha Bush, who's a very respected person. For years, American couples struggling with infertility have faced crushing costs in their quest to start a family, and IVF is among the most expensive treatments of all. A single round of IVF in the United States can cost up to $25,000, can actually go a lot higher than that, and many couples require multiple rounds for a successful pregnancy. A major reason for these high prices is the excessive cost of the drugs involved. The number one fertility drug used in IVF is currently 700% more expensive in the United States than the rest of the world. And, you know, we're ending all of that. It's called favored nations, and we're ending it, and we're ending it pretty fast. Nobody thought we'd be able to do it, and we've done it. Drugs are going to come down. Drug prices are coming down 400%, 200%, 600%, numbers that nobody's ever seen before. Great for Medicare, Medicaid, even Social Security. Great for everything, I think, Dr. Oz. So it's something that's, to me, it's very exciting. I'm bugging him and Bobby all the time. How are we doing with that? And we're doing really good, Bobby. Right? It's really going good. Other countries are agreeing to it, because if they don't, we put tariffs on them. and then they agree. So it's amazing. It's amazing how that worked out. But as an example, in London, you'd buy a certain drug for $130, and even less than that, I guess $88 as of a count a month ago. And in New York, you pay $1,300 for the same thing. So now we're going to be paying, instead of $1,300, you'll be paying about $150. And they'll be paying $150 too. We're going to pay the same thing. Favored nations. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing. And we've been ripped off by the whole world for a long period of time. One of the most popular fertility drug regimens costs over $5,000 per cycle, as an example. Wow. Largely as a result of these unsustainable prices, 70% of the employers do not offer insurance that covers IVF. Therefore, most couples with fertility challenges are paying these costs entirely out of their own pockets, which is not really possible to do. Oh, look who we have. Look at that, the great Maria Bartiromo. I didn't know. Did you get put into the regular pool pack? That's very good. Yeah, that's good. Nice to see you. I'm doing an interview with her in a little while. In the Trump administration, we want to make it easier for all couples to have babies, raise children, and start the families they've always dreamed about. That's why today I'm pleased to announce that after extensive negotiations, EMD Serrano, the largest fertility drug manufacturer in the world, has agreed to provide massive discounts to all fertility drugs they sell in the United States, including the most popular drug of all, the IVF drug Gonal-F. So it's Gonal-F. Is that a proper pronunciation? Close enough, right? Gonal-F. As part of this agreement, EMD Serrano will list their fertility drugs online at trumprx.gov at very, very heavily reduced prices, prices that you won't even believe. And ultimately, that's because of the favored nations. In addition, the FDA will be working with the company to expedite review and approval of another common fertility IVF drug, and currently it's selling in Europe. It's Pergoveris. And that's a sounding nice name. Pergoveris. Why can't you name them nice, simple names? Nice, easy names. Doesn't matter. If it works, that's all we care about, right? Upon approval, this drug would directly compete against a much more expensive option that currently has a monopoly in the American market, and this will bring down costs very significantly. And the other one's going to have to come down also. Finally, EMD Serrano has agreed that all future drugs and everything that it develops and sells in the United States will be offset at most favored nation prices. I've been after this for a long time. And we started the process in the last administration, and then we had a little thing called COVID that came up. We had to focus on that, did a good job on that, too. And they'll bring a significant portion of their drug manufacturing back to the United States. So they're going to bring it largely back into the United States, and that's for a lot of reasons, but primarily because of the election result, November 5th, and maybe most importantly because of the tariffs, because if they do it here, there are no tariffs. So we're going to be very close. I think by the end of this year, we're going to be very close to $20 trillion in investment. As an example, the Biden administration had less than $1 trillion, substantially less than $1 trillion for 4 years, Maria. Can you imagine? 4 years, less than one. We're going to break $20 trillion of investment, and we're already over $17 trillion. And that's in 8 months. Can you believe that? And he was at less than $1 trillion. And in addition to that, he had open borders, allowing millions of people to pour in. What an administration that was. Worst president in history, by far. As a result of these actions, the per-cycle cost of drugs used in IVF will fall by an estimated 73% for American consumers, and the numbers are going to actually be very substantially higher as time goes by when it really kicks in. For most of, I mean, think of those numbers. You know, I told the story last time because we were with Pfizer, and Pfizer's doing something very similar. But I told them that my first term, I was so proud of myself because I was the first president in 28 years where drug prices went down for the year. And you know what? They went down 1/8 of 1%. But I was so 1/8 of 1%. Now I'm getting them down, Maria, 500, 600, 800%. In some cases, even more than that. It's hard to believe. But I was proud. I said, oh, wow, I'm the first one. 1/8 of 1%. And I was proud of that. Now I realize, and I called a news conference. Some of you were at that news conference, actually. And I said, ladies and gentlemen, congratulations. We've gone down by 1/8 of 1%. And now we're going down 500, 600, 700, 800%, Richard. So it's really something. For most administrations and all of the people involved in this kind of thing, this action would be a crowning achievement of their agenda for fertility health. But for us, it's really just the beginning. It's just a start. It's one of many things we're doing. Today, we're also taking historic steps to vastly expand access to insurance coverage for fertility care, including IVF, something that, as you know, was not covered. Effective immediately, for the first time ever, we will make it legal for companies to offer supplemental insurance plans specifically for fertility. It's never been done before. We're signing it in today with what we signed. Americans will be able to opt in to specialized coverage just as they get vision and dental insurance. They're going to get fertility insurance for the first time. So I don't know. I don't know how well these things are covered. I see the Democrats like to take credit for all of the things we do. We do the things and they take the credit. But I figure if you do enough of these, eventually people are going to figure it out. The Democrats have done nothing. This will make all fertility care, including IVF, far more affordable and accessible. And by providing coverage at every step of the way, it will reduce the number of people who ultimately need to resort to IVF because couples will be able to identify and address problems early. The result will be healthier pregnancies, healthier babies, and many more beautiful American children. It's a big factor. It's a big deal. I'm asking all employers to make these new fertility benefit options available to their employees immediately. The initiatives I've just announced are the boldest and most significant actions ever taken by any president to bring the miracle of life into more American homes. And I will say Katie was great. As you know, she's a great senator from Alabama. She's the first one that told me about this. I had not known too much about it, and we worked very rapidly together, didn't we, though?
Mr. President, you
We had everything passed, and Alabama then took care of it and passed it. Within a week, everything was done. Really, it was something. So I want to thank Katie, Brett. There's no deeper happiness and joy of raising children, and now millions of Americans struggling with infertility will have a new chance to share the greatest experience of them all. So I'd like to thank all of the people that are here, and I think we'll start with Dr. Oz and Ms. Horn. We'll go through the list and we'll listen. And yesterday I did this, and I stood for about an hour and a half as people spoke. And I said, this time I'm sitting right there, and I'm going to watch you. I stood for an hour and a half like this. I said, you got to be kidding. Here we go. It was one after another, and it was wonderful listening to them. But I said, if I have to do this every day, Bobby, should I stand or sit? Thank you, Bobby. Please, Dr. Oz.
Okay. Mr. President, I'm going to jump in here real quick. I want to start by thanking President Trump. Sir, from the very first phone call we ever had, your support was strong. It was steadfast. It was unwavering. And because of you, millions of Americans are going to have a greater opportunity to bring the greatest gift, in my opinion, life into this world. Your support, your administration's support, it's a game changer. All of us here today are aligned. This is a celebration of life. It's a celebration of parents. It's a celebration of families. And it's a celebration for those people who want to one day be parents themselves. I think every parent can attest, and I certainly do myself, that the greatest gift that God has ever given me is the ability to be a mom. We want more people to have that opportunity. We want to make that easier and more affordable. IVF is what makes the difference for so many families that are facing infertility. So you've seen the numbers. It's either 1 in 8 couples, or some people say as much as 1 in 6, are actually experiencing issues with fertility. It's 9% of males and at least 11% of females that are facing these challenges as they work to build their family. The recommendations today that President Trump has set forth are going to expand IVF coverage to nearly 1 million more families, and they're going to drive down cost significantly. Mr. President, this is the most pro-IVF thing that any president in the history of the United States of America has done. And Mr. President, it's your leadership. You are the reason why the Republican Party is now the party of parents. We are the party of families. This is why when Senator Cruz and I worked last year, we got every single Republican senator to sign on and say that they supported nationwide access to IVF. And just for the record, IVF is legal and accessible in all 50 states. And President Trump taking this action today to lower cost, to bring these issues to the forefront, and to enact solutions for people working to start their families. I want you to know it's significant, and there's more to come. But this isn't the only thing that you've done to prove that we're the party of parents and we're the party of families. If you look at the working family tax cut, guys, he made sure that hard-working parents were front and center in that legislation. You know, whether it was child tax credits being expanded and made permanent, whether it was Trump accounts that are going to change the game for so many parents, or whether it was childcare. So for decades, we have heard Democrats talk about childcare. President Trump actually took action on the affordability and accessibility of childcare. We know that 1 in 4 families say that they hesitate to have more children because of the cost and because of childcare cost. For the first time, this man actually took steps to change the dynamics for hardworking parents. So of the 3 tax credits that he reformed and the working families tax cuts, 2 of them had not been touched in 2 decades, and 1 of them had not been touched since 1986. So President Reagan was in office the last time anybody did anything about it. But you changed the game on that, and I was proud to lead that effort in the Senate. And so on behalf of moms and dads, on behalf of grandparents and sisters and aunts and uncles and brothers and people who are looking to expand their family, we say thank you. Thank you for all you do to support families in this country and make a healthier environment and an easier one for us to grow the very most important thing. God bless.
So let's set the stage. Put it in perspective, 2 weeks ago, as President Trump alluded, a leading U.S. drug manufacturer came into this room and agreed to do something none of us thought was possible. A most favored nation agreement with numbers, again, inconceivable. Last week, a company from Europe, a global leader in the pharmaceutical sector, came to this office, made the same kind of commitment for most favored nation pricing, again, because the president insisted on it and was persistent, and he alluded to the fact that he was calling Secretary Kennedy and me quite a bit. He definitely was, with great insights into the process, and would not hold back. But I think what you're seeing today is something even larger. It's larger because we're now showing that MFN is a tool that can get other initiatives going as well. We are revealing perhaps the most important MFN opportunity at all, because it's about procreation. It's about babies. It turns out that MFN is a tool for a lot of things, and it goes without saying that you get the drug pricing down, but lots of other business necessities become possible when that occurs. So Secretary Kennedy and I, who's a wonderful leader, talk frequently about family. I think the reason he's a great leader and president as well is because they have large families and they take pride in the joy that it gives us. But many families, as Senator Britt alluded, do not have the ability to have children. But it turns out that it's about 1 in 3 families, a much higher number, that don't have the number of babies they desire. They're under-babied. So this president committed to address that during the campaign, and he is delivering on that today in a way I don't think anyone thought was possible. We are opening the door with MFN pricing and tariffs that support it, Secretary Lutnick, with a new approach to make reproductive medicine more affordable for Americans. Now, I know what you're all thinking, and you're probably right. There are going to be a lot of Trump babies. I think that's probably a good thing. But it turns out the fundamental creative force in society is about making babies. It's about creating. And this country, the one that President Trump is leading so beautifully, has been a country of abundance, not scarcity. To have abundance, you have to address the fact that we had 3.6 million babies last year, which is beautiful, 3.6 million miracles. That's 500,000 less babies than we would ideally have had, even to replace our current population. Building on the success of the last 2 weeks, our team, led by the head of Medicare, Chris Klump, who's standing over there, and Ina Hernandez, have negotiated a spectacular MFN deal to reduce the cost of IVF drug prices by $2,200 a cycle. That's nearly half of the price that it had been. The most prescribed drug in this category in America, made by MD Serrano, is described over here. And you'll notice, President Trump, these are discounted from $242 to $10. I don't know what the math is on that. We can't even calculate it. It's a lot. It's too high to calculate without a more studied approach. But I give it up there because that number of $10 will apply for every American who earns less than $115,000 a year. That's 70% of the American people. The remaining folks who are able to make more will have to pay a tiny bit more, but it's still most favored nation pricing, no different from what the Europeans are willing to pay. Now, to make this deal happen, Chris and Inma had to do something special. They had to actually not just get the drug price down, but get the middlemen to let it go as well. And, Mr. President, we've met with the middlemen in the past. They're now joining the MFN movement. I want to thank Express Scripts Freedom Pharmacy and then CVS's Specialty Pharmacy because they were willing to stand up and do the right thing for the American people by answering the president's call and slashing their prices. Now, this announcement also encompasses a remarkable move from Marty Makary. And Marty Makary is, of course, the leader of the FDA, but he has ongoing efforts to accelerate their approval of innovative medicines that will further reduce the price and make this whole process more seamless for the American people. Now, you're about to hear about a spectacular new program that's been alluded to. But one of the architects of that program, Heidi Overton, Deputy Director of the White House Domestic Policy Council, is going to take us through the exciting details of what this is going to offer for the American people, especially those who are in the workforce. But first, we think you should hear from Libby Horn. Libby's EMD Serrano's head of fertility. She brings both professional expertise and a personal connection to this work. She has 3 beautiful daughters, and she has personally benefited from reproductive medicine that has shaped her family, and her company made today's spectacular MFN pricing possible. Libby.
Thank you, Dr. Oz. Thank you, Mr. President. Today, we gather on this national stage to celebrate a historic step forward in expanding access to fertility treatments for those who need it most. Mr. President, thanks to your leadership and the tireless efforts of your team, this is a momentous day for Americans who struggle but remain hopeful to build their families. Infertility is on the rise in our country. 1 in 8 couples face infertility. This isn't just a number, it's real lives, dreams, and aspirations of hardworking Americans. The teacher who goes to school each day, surrounded by children, but aching for children of her own. The firefighter who puts his life on the line, but can't create the life he wants at home. The consequences of these challenges can take significant tolls. Some of you watching today have given up or are frustrated because access to IVF treatments has been out of reach. That's why expanding access to IVF has been an issue of great importance to the President. He made this clear in his executive order declaring the administration's goal of supporting American families by enabling access and eliminating barriers to IVF. Today, EMD Serrano is proud to to help President Trump deliver on his promise to you. Thanks to the President's leadership, EMD Serono has worked alongside distributors and other partners to help more families have access to services and innovations that are consistent with other countries. Through our partnership with the administration, we are proud to announce that Americans will have access to our leading IVF therapies for an 84% discount off list prices. That's amazing. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you. Thank you for making this possible.
Thank you very much. It's great. Fantastic.
For more than 40 years, EMD Serono has been a global leader in fertility. Our science was instrumental in the birth of the first IVF baby in the U.S., and we've helped to bring more than 6 million babies into the world since then. Our purpose is to help create, improve, and prolong life. That means discovering more medicines and bringing them to patients faster. FDA Commissioner McCary has made it a priority to ensure that Americans have access to the world's most innovative treatments as quickly as possible. To that end, EMD Serono is filing a new IVF therapy called Pergoveris for review under the FDA Commissioner's National Priority Voucher Program. If approved, Pergoveris would combine 2 key reproductive hormones in synergy designed to mimic reproductive physiology. This therapeutic option could mean fewer injections, fewer copays, and lower self-pay cost, all of which make a real difference in the IVF patient experience. In closing, on behalf of EMD Serono, I want to send my heartfelt thanks to President Trump and the entire administration for their leadership and vision in this critical area of healthcare. Together, we will make a difference in the lives of countless families across this nation and uphold our long-standing legacy of creating life. Thank you.
Mr. President, thank you for your bold leadership that's allowed our teams to go far beyond what anyone thought was possible. On behalf of the Domestic Policy Council and Vince Haley here, we would like to also thank all the agency partners and the stakeholders that we worked with to get to the solution today that will make a real impact for families. Specifically, today's historic actions, 4 in total that you see, are made possible by coordination of all of the White House team and 7 agencies, many of who are represented here, and their teams that have worked tirelessly. As you described, Mr. President, the current system isn't working. 7 in 10 Americans don't have coverage to IVF. They face high costs and uncertain outcomes. And there's intense demand for fertility benefits. 65% of Americans say that they would leave their current job just because of fertility benefits. So you asked us to lower costs and to fix the broken incentives in healthcare. In addition to lowering the cost of drugs by 73% or $2,200 per cycle, which if you missed it, most people require 2 or 3 cycles. So that's significant savings for families. I'm also going to briefly outline the new solution for coverage. This is a new fertility benefit option that employers can immediately offer to their employees starting today. This afternoon, the Departments of Labor, Health and Human Services, and Treasury will be releasing guidance that, for the first time, creates a legal pathway for employers to offer fertility benefit packages to people that need them, similar to how dental, vision, and life insurance are currently offered. This will be followed up by a regulation. These benefits can address the continuum of fertility needs, from the root causes of IVF, which Secretary Kennedy is working on very hard at HHS, to It'll be a coordinated package that does not exist in traditional health insurance today. It'll make it easier for employers, including small and mid-sized employers, to compete for talented employees. Currently, many small businesses cannot afford to offer fertility benefits at all. This is making it possible for them to offer benefits the same way that large companies like Amazon and others offer benefits. This is a pro-family benefit expansion that will transform clinical outcomes by addressing fragmented coverage and care. I'm a physician by training, and it's very important that we have high-quality care. Fertility benefit companies are poised to offer packages that have reported so far roughly 25% higher live birth rates for those that seek care compared to those that don't have such benefits. They also report fewer cycles to achieve pregnancy, improved natural pregnancy rates through better care before you need IVF, and reduced chance of miscarriages, a 21% reduction in miscarriage rate. Leading physicians in the field have also relayed that these types of benefits significantly improve the patient and doctor experience, allowing both to focus on care rather than navigating the bureaucracy. These impacts are very personal. Here with us today are my good friends, Congressman Richard Hudson of North Carolina and his wife, Renee Hudson. Both have worked in public service for years, including Renee for all 4 years of your past administration, Mr. President, and they struggled with infertility. Today they have a beautiful son who's their pride and joy. He's an amazing boy. But they also suffered multiple losses throughout their fertility journey, something that is very common. Unfortunately, too many people go through the hard, arduous process of IVF and still result in a miscarriage. So today, your option is not only saving money, it's going to improve the quality of care significantly. This new benefit option simultaneously represents the greatest opportunity to expand coverage of IVF that the federal government has ever taken, while also improving the care delivered. Additionally, a benefit option means lower costs and more healthy babies. So today, this announcement, we are realigning the industry towards the simple metric of more healthy babies at lower costs. I would now like to introduce Samantha Bush, the wife of NASCAR driver Kyle Busch, who's been a leading advocate for IVF access and affordability after your own infertility journey. Thank you, Mr. President.
Hello, everyone. My husband, Kyle, and I battled infertility for over a decade before being blessed with our 2 beautiful children, Brexton, who's 10, and our daughter, Lennox, who's now 3. But our journey was long and painful. We faced 6 rounds of IVF, multiple miscarriages, multiple failed cycles, and countless moments of heartbreak. We faced the roller coaster of hope and devastation that so many families know all too well. Through it all, we held on to faith, each other, and the belief that somehow, someday, God would turn our pain into purpose. We also saw firsthand the staggering financial burden that comes with infertility treatments. Sitting in the waiting room of our fertility clinic, we overheard another couple quietly say that money was the only thing standing in their way of having their family. In that moment, Kyle and I looked at each other, and we knew God was planting a seed in our hearts, a calling to take action. In 2015, that calling became the Bundle of Joy Fund, a nonprofit foundation dedicated to providing financial assistance to couples struggling with infertility. What began as a small act of faith has now grown into something far greater than we could have ever imagined. To date, we've granted over $2 million directly to individuals, helping them pay for their IVF treatments, and we've celebrated the birth of 108 beautiful babies through our fund. Thank you. Each baby is a living, breathing testament to hope, community, and God's grace. For every tear we cried, for every shot we gave, every doctor's appointment that ended in disappointment, Kyle and I knew there had to be a greater reason. This was God's plan for us, to use our journey to advocate, empower, and be the voice to those battling in silence. Over the past 12 years, we've worked hard to raise awareness, erase stigma, and bring hope to the 1 in 6 couples that will face infertility. Infertility can be incredibly isolating. It can leave you questioning your faith, your body, and your future. But it can also reveal a strength that you never knew you had inside of you. It can deepen love, it can bring couples closer together, and it unites people through a shared struggle. Our goal has always been to show others that they are not alone, that there is a powerful community of infertility warriors behind them. Today, seeing President Trump acknowledge infertility on a national stage is profoundly moving. It's no longer a whispered conversation behind closed doors. It is a recognized, validated struggle that so many families have to endure. His leadership reminds us that those in positions of power can make real and lasting changes for generations to come. Their willingness to bring this issue forward shows that they not only hear our community, but they truly care about us. Thank you, Mr. President, and to your family, for shining a light on infertility and for standing by couples like Kyle and I, for standing by couples who only want to hear the words mommy and daddy,
who want to watch our children open their Christmas presents on Christmas morning, who want to see the world anew through the joy in their kids' eyes. Your acknowledgement honors the power of family, faith, and love, the very values that make America the greatest country in the world. It's proof that when promises are made and promises are kept, lives are changed forever. Thank you, Mr. President.
Anybody else? Howard, would you like to say a couple? No. I was hoping you would say that. Bobby, come on up for a second. What a job you're doing. Yeah, say a few words, Bobby.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you for your vision, your commitment to our country. When my uncle was president, the fertility rate in this country was 3.5%. Today, it is 1.6%. The replacement rate, in other words, the amount of fertility that you need in order to keep your population even, is 2.1%. We are below replacement right now. That is a national security threat to our country. And we know why this is happening. And President Trump is addressing the root causes through his MAHA agenda of reducing endocrine disruptors, the exposure to chemicals that decrease fertility. Today, the average teenager in this country has 50% of the sperm count, 50% of the testosterone as a 65-year-old man. Our girls are hitting puberty 6 years earlier. And that's bad, but also our parents aren't having children. Parents who want to have children do not have access. I have 7 children. I feel that God has blessed me with that, and I can't imagine how different my life would be if I did not have that blessing. I want to point out also that this morning Harvard University released a study that showed that the obesity rates have now climbed over 70%. And this, again, is for the same reason we're flooding our kids. We're poisoning mass poisoning a generation of kids with chemicals. President Trump has instructed us to stop these problems at the root cause. He's also recognized that there are people who are injured, people who are not living their life to the fullest, and he's addressing that. Last week, we made GLP drugs available at Most Favored Nation. And this week, it's IVF. Oh, I want to thank you so much for that, Mr. President. I saw on an airplane the other day, you said that you didn't believe that you were going to get to heaven. You're doing God's work here. You've made peace in the Middle East, which is beyond anybody's imagination. And now you're giving millions of Americans a chance to have babies. And you're doing this while the government is locked down by the Democrats. But this administration has not stopped working for the American people. And that's because of your energy, your commitment, your vision, and I want to thank you for allowing me to be part of it.
And he's doing a great job. And by the way, Kyle is fantastic. So he's got a lot of courage. I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't care. Howard, you and I would not be good at that. Right? We'd go about 30 miles an hour, but we'd be safe. Anyway, so thank you very much. Any questions, please?
Mr. President, you posted earlier today.
Yeah, please.
Mr. President, this is a major campaign promise that you made. It was a big hot topic towards the end of the election. You're delivering on that again. I actually had a question for Secretary Kennedy or Dr. Heidi. Dr. Heidi, you said something that I thought was really important. You talked about how this coverage option, this benefit option, gives companies the maximum flexibility to design benefits consistent to their values. I was wondering if either you or the President could expand on that and talk about why that's an important thing to understand about this program.
Thank you. It's a great question. We think that employers are best situated to know what them and their employees want to contribute to in relation to their benefits. So employers are going to be able to decide how to cover the root causes of infertility, things like obesity, metabolic health, and other things that are impacting infertility. And also, if they want to encourage their employees to see certain types of doctors, and they can work with providers that are identifying the highest quality fertility providers. And so it puts them in the driver's seat. And our view is that we want employers to be the ones that can make those decisions, not the government. Thank you.
All right. That's a good answer. Yeah, it was. That's a very good answer. Yeah, please go ahead.
Mr. President, previously you did not seem to be bothered regarding Hamas cracking down on what you called gangs, actually, a couple of gangs. And today you issued a threat against Hamas on Truth Social. What has changed?
And what was said? Go ahead.
You said if they continue keep killing innocents in Gaza, that if that continues, the United States will go after them.
I know, I issued a strong statement, that's right.
They used to be gangs, and now you're saying innocents. What made you think they're innocents now?
Well, I'm looking at what's happening, and that wasn't the deal that was made, and we'll see what happens. It's calmed down. It's a tough neighborhood, we know that. We have a commitment from them, and I assume they're going to honor that commitment. I hope they do. And I understand they brought back some additional bodies today. It's a rough deal when you think of it, right? Very rough. And we have our hostages back completely. We were very lucky with that. But it's a tough situation. They brought back bodies today, as you probably know. But they also said they're going to behave. We're going to find out if they behave. If they behave, good. If they don't behave, we'll take care of it. Yeah, please.
Following up on that,
I didn't say you. Your CNN fake news. Go ahead.
You said in your post that if they kept killing people in Gaza, we would have no choice but to go in and kill them. So do you mean U.S. forces would go in and take out Hamas?
No, I didn't say who would go in, but somebody will go in. It's not going to be us. We won't have to. There are people very close, very nearby that will go in. They'll do the trick very easily, but under our auspices.
Could I follow up? You also posted about your call with President Putin today, and you spoke about meeting in Hungary with him. Do you have a timeline or a date set for when?
Yeah, I would say within 2 weeks or so. Pretty quick. Marco Rubio is going to be meeting with his counterpart, as you know, Lavrov, and they'll be meeting pretty soon. They're going to set up a time and a place very shortly. Maybe it's already set up. They've already spoken. And I thought it was a very good phone call. I thought very productive. But I'll be meeting with President Putin, and we'll make a determination. Tomorrow I'm meeting with President Zelensky, and I'll be telling him about the call. I mean, we have a problem. They don't get along too well, those two, and it's sometimes tough to have meetings, so we may do something where we're separate but equal. We'll meet and talk parties, but this is a terrible relationship the two of them have, and it's one of those things. I've seen things that nobody would believe, but this is one of them. So I'll be meeting. We're going to be meeting in Hungary. Viktor Orban is going to be hosting, and it's really something that's time. Last week, over 7,000 people were killed. That's ridiculous. And, you know, it doesn't affect our country. We're not losing people. We're not losing Bobby. We're not losing Americans. But they're losing Russians, Ukrainians, mostly soldiers, for the most part, soldiers. And we think we're going to get it. We hope we're going to get it stopped. I thought this would be, because of my relationship with President Putin, I thought this would be very quick. And it's turned out to be, who would think I did Middle East before I did this? We did a total of 8 now, 7 and now 8. And we're going to make this number 9. Yeah, please.
So you said, you posted that there was great progress. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Was it a shift in Putin's tone? Was it something new he told you? Did he give you any message to give?
You're talking about the whole
President Zelensky tomorrow.
It just seems to me that, you know, look, it's only a field. That's all I've done in my whole life. I've made deals. I know about deals. I do it well. I don't think any president's ever ended a war, frankly. One war, I did 8 of them, Maria, right? And but I don't know, did Bush ever end? Do you think Biden ended a war? Biden started wars because he was stupid. But do you think Biden ended any wars? No, I don't know of anybody that ended wars. I ended 8 of them, and it's going to be 9. I think we're going to have this one done, hopefully soon. But I'll be meeting him probably over the next 2 weeks. First, Marco is going to be meeting, and the vice president, as you know, is very much involved. The whole team is involved. Steve Witkoff will be involved. Yeah, please.
What did you tell them about the Tomahawks? Did you discuss the Tomahawk missiles? Did you discuss?
Well, we talked about it a little bit. Didn't say much, but I do say to you, you know, we need Tomahawks for the United States of America too. We have a lot of them, but we need them. I mean, we can't deplete for our country. So, you know, they're very vital. They're very powerful. They're very accurate. They're very good, but we need them too. So I don't know what we can do about that.
Why do you think a second meeting with Putin now will yield different results?
Well, I think Alaska actually set a stage, and that wasn't very long ago, but it set a stage. You have to understand, I came into this situation. I didn't start this war. This is a Biden deal. And I came into it, and it was a mess. It could have led to World War III. In my opinion, this could have led to World War III. That won't happen, but it could have. So I came in, this war was raging. When I left, this wasn't even a thought. For 4 years, nobody talked about it. I spoke to President Putin about Ukraine. It was the apple of his eye, but there was never going to be doing anything like this. And this all went because of some really bad decisions that were made. And look what you have. You have millions of people dead. You have just a horrible, horrible situation. I'm doing it to save souls. That's all I'm doing it for. I'm not doing it for us. We have an ocean between us. I'm doing it also to help Europe. They want to have it ended, but they're unable to do it. I'm able to do it. So I think we'll be successful. We'll save a lot of lives. It should have been done. Should have never started. This would have never happened if the election weren't rigged. This would have never happened. But it did happen, and I'll get it stopped. Okay.
What's your message to pro-life conservatives?
Yeah, you mentioned a $1,300 drug at the top of this. Were you referring to the weight loss drugs?
Yeah, I was referring to Ozempic or I heard the fat loss drug.
So those are going to be $150 out of pocket for Americans?
They'll be much lower. They'll be much lower. Yeah, go ahead, please.
We have not negotiated those yet. We're going to be rolling these out over time. The GLP category of drugs, which includes Ozempic, have not been negotiated yet.
What's the timeline for that?
But it will. It'll come down, like everyone else.
Okay. Any timeline on those negotiations?
No, but I think those are going to come down pretty fast, and we do have, I guess, some alternatives.
The president will be happy with the result, and until he is, we're not going to close those negotiations. Thank you.
Except it'll happen.
Got it.
Mr. President, what's your message to pro-life conservatives? Some pro-life conservatives have religious objections to IVF and are already critical of this policy. What's your message to them?
I don't know about the views of that. I'm just looking to do something because, you know, pro-life, I think this is very pro-life. You can't get more pro-life than this. Please.
Mr. President, you've been talking about how this new benefit plan will also include root cause treatments for infertility. How will you make sure that those root cause treatments are equally accessible to IVF?
Well, I think we're going to be doing that. Would anybody like to talk about that subject?
I'll comment
Please.
on the rulemaking process. I think it's the determination, again, Secretary of Labor, the determination, the Department of Labor is issuing their intent today to open up the rulemaking process, again, for more flexibility. Any time that you have a president who's leading when you can offer more access to health care at a lower rate is a benefit to the American people and to the end user, and that's exactly what he's doing. And so you heard before that through the Q&A guidance that was issued today with the other agencies, that will give guidance to our employers and the employees about what the flexibility of that is, and then again opening that rulemaking process for further determination of the access that can be had offered in those benefits for all different types of health care access is the goal of the Department of Labor.
Good answer.
Thank you.
I like this better. I just say they can do better than me. Yeah, please.
Mr. President, do you think
Good job, Lauren. You know, you're doing a fantastic job.
Thank you, Mr. President.
I shouldn't tell. I won't say it. That I will not say that she was recommended by the Teamsters. Can you believe it? And she's turned out to be a gem, an absolute gem. You're doing a great job. Thank you very much.
Mr. President, John Bolton was just indicted.
Do you think we can see your deal-making skills applied to the government shutdown anytime soon?
Well, look, I mean, all we want to do is just extend. We don't want anything. We just want to extend, live with the deal that they had. They want to spend $1.5 trillion on illegal immigrants, and they want to destroy health care for everyone else. And it's crazy. It's crazy. People that are here illegally, they want to spend $1.5 trillion. So we're just not going to do it. No, we have to take care of our health care. Now, we're doing that today, and we're doing it with, favored nations, the most favored nations. Your costs are going to be dropping greatly. And I'm really I'm really happy that it's at the beginning of my administration, because I did insulin and got it down to like $25, but it doesn't kick in. It didn't kick in for 2 years by statute, so it couldn't kick in. And I said, boy, I hope I win this election, because if I don't, somebody else is going to take credit for it, Bobby. And sure as can be, Biden said he didn't even know what the hell was happening, and it was a hard thing for me to do. I got insulin way down. What was it before that? It was just massive. It was impossible to afford. And sure as can be, because it was statute, it couldn't have been earlier. I said, boy, this falls into the next administration. I better win. And all of a sudden, I watched this Biden taking credit for something that I did. And on other things, too. We had a lot of things kick in. So the nice part about this is at the beginning of our administration, so I think we're going to see the fruits of our labor. And I hope on our other situation that we've talked so much about, autism, I hope we're going to see some very good results based on the recommendations that we made. And, we have time to watch those results now.
John Bolton was just indicted by a grand jury in Maryland. Do you have a reaction to that?
I didn't know that. You tell me for the first time, but I think he's, a bad person. I think he's a bad guy. Yeah, he's a bad guy. It's too bad, but that's the way it goes.
The case against him?
That's the way it goes, right? That's the way it goes. Will I what?
Have you reviewed the case against him?
No, I haven't. But I just think he's a bad person. Okay, anybody else?
What's the timeline for the IVF drug through the National Commissioner Priority Review Voucher? Dr. McCary?
What do you think, Doctor?
So, first of all, the National Priority Voucher Program says we're going to proactively at the FDA look for amazing treatments like this IVF treatment. We're going to reach out to the companies, and if it's in line with the president's national priorities, we're going to put those drugs at the front of the line and get a decision out in weeks instead of a year. And so today we announced 9 drugs that are going to be recipients. These are products where the manufacturing is going to be in the United States, or it's meeting a large unmet public health need, like a diabetes drug we announced today. Or it is a product where you're going to see an affordability phenomena because the prices are getting equalized in line with the president's most favored nation status goal.
Wow, that's good. Why didn't I have him speaking? So could have saved a lot of time. That's funny. I'm not surprised. Yeah, please.
Yes, thank you, Chris. So Senate Majority Leader John Thune today said he'd like to proceed with the bill which would put sanctions on Russia. What's your thought on that?
Well, we're going to see. He doesn't know about the call yet. I'm going to speak to him later. And it was subject to what I wanted to do. And so we'll see what happens. We may have, this may be such a productive call that we're going to end up, we want to get peace. We want to stop the killing. 7,000 people a week. Can you believe it? We want to stop the killing. So I'm going to speak to him and the speaker, Mike Johnson. I'll speak to them a little bit later, and I'll tell them about this, and we'll make the right determination. I'm not against anything. I'm just saying it may not be perfect timing. It could happen in a week or two, but it's at my option, as you know.
Right, but did President Putin try to dissuade you from selling Tomahawk missiles?
Well, of course. What do you think he's going to say? Please sell Tomahawks?
No, but did he give any
Is he going to say, please sell those Tomahawks? I really appreciate it. I did actually say, would you mind if I gave a couple of thousand Tomahawks to your opposition? I did say that to him. I said it just that way. He didn't like the idea. He really didn't like the idea. No, I said it that way. You have to be a little bit lighthearted sometimes, but no, he doesn't want Tomahawk. Tomahawk is a vicious weapon. It's a vicious, offensive, incredibly destructive weapon. Nobody wants Tomahawk shot at him.
Specifically ask you not to provide Tomahawks?
So, wouldn't anybody? I mean, it's been in the news. Who wouldn't do that? CNN. Who wouldn't do that? You know? Do you think he's going to say, I'd love to have Tomahawk sent my way? I don't think so. Maria, we have one of the great stars of television here, and she's an incredible person. And She's just an amazing woman who she got it all right. She got the Russia hoax right. She got everything. Would you have a question?
Yes, Mr. President. I would ask you why this was so important to you, IVF, and why was autism so important to you? What are you trying to achieve?
Well, autism is like a whole different thing. When you look at, it was 1 in 20,000. Now it's 1 in 12. If you look, Bobby, we have different numbers, but 1 in 12, 1 in 28, 1 in 32. There's a couple of different numbers out there, but it's 1 in a very, very different number than it used to be. It used to be 1 in 20,000, and that was not that long ago, 20 years ago or so. And now they had something for boys, for babies, baby boys. It's 1 in 12. I heard 1 in 10, Bobby. I heard another one, different lists, but when you think of that, it's not even sustainable, but there's something artificial. When that happens, that's not like a natural. And then you have certain groups of people that literally don't have autism, and they're not taking some of the things that we're taking. So we're working very hard. And on IVF, it's just that I have friends, including Katie, that called me, and they told me the importance of it. I wasn't that familiar with it. Now I think I've sort of become the father ever since I heard. There was a bad decision in Alabama where a judge wanted all clinics to be immediately closed, right? And Katie called up, and you said you were pretty strongly attacked by your friends that you didn't even know were involved with IVF, right?
You had people that had grandkids, people who'd gone through IVF themselves, telling their story. And
Yeah.
saying there are people that cope with her.
Tell what you did when you heard from your friends. You said this was not, they almost became violent, right?
I told him, I said, Mr. President, we need you. We need your voice in this conversation. We need the directive. We need the strong support, because there are millions of people out there, moms and dads, wanting to bring life into the world. And you had people, the chilling effect that occurred across Alabama, there were people that were in the middle of that process that had been praying to have a child, and that was halted. And so the reality of that was very stark in our state. And so I was able to tell the president some of the stories of people, friends and grandparents and relatives that told me what they had experienced, and also, what they were fearful of in the future. And the president very quickly acted, spoke with a strong voice, and really led the way. Obviously, we saw Democrats continue to fearmonger for the remainder of the year, trying to use it as an election issue, when actually IVF is legal and accessible in all 50 states. And President Trump very clearly said where he was on this, and he said, I'm going to make sure that this is more accessible and that it is more affordable for families coast to coast. That's exactly what he did, but it's that real life, there's real life stories, sir, that he responded to. And that's what people don't know about him. He cares. And when you tell him what American people are dealing with, he wants to do something about it. You have leaders and politicians that come before him that want to talk about things. President Trump wants to actually make things happen. It's exactly what he did here, and I'm so grateful, Mr. President.
Thank you, Katie, very much. Appreciate it. So we will go back to what we're doing, working again with Marco and with JD and a few other people on the war, and we're doing a lot of other things also. The economy is unbelievable. It really is. It's been incredible. And I think one of the great numbers that I've ever heard, think of it, over $17 trillion being invested in our country. And when you think of, compare that to the last administration, but really compare it to any administration, compare it to any country. There's never been a country with anything like that. That's in a period of 8 months. And we've already broken every record possible. There's never anything even close. So we'll go back to all of that. Prices are down. Oil is down. We're down $58 a barrel. We're going to be hitting $2 for gasoline. I think we're going to be at $2. And the previous administration, they were at $4 and $5. They were going up much higher. And then they swung back into my things, but they didn't swing back properly. They were very, very late. They really blew it. We had it really going in the right direction. They came and took everything out, and it's incredible. I'll never forget. They lost control of the price of gasoline, of oil. They totally lost control, Howard, and then they went back immediately. Well, let's go back to Trump. But by that time, It was too late, and they didn't go back because the leases and everything else. They didn't do what they had to do. They wouldn't know. They really didn't know how to. But we could be hitting close to $2 a gallon. I'd love to break it if we could, but we could be. And you know, when that comes down, everything else has been coming down. Groceries are down. The price of things are down. And honestly, the simplicity is if you can get oil down, it's such a big category, everything follows. So just about everything follows. And we are working on beef, and I think we have a deal on beef that's going to bring the price of beef. That would be the one product that we would say is a little bit higher than we want it, maybe higher than we want it, and that's going to be coming down pretty soon, too. We did something. We worked our magic. But groceries are down, and energy is down. Electricity is way down. We have the prices coming down for people. They were abused for 4 years by the Biden administration. Thank you very much, everybody. We'll see you soon. Thank you. Thank you.
Changes to the IRS.
Thank you, Chris. Let's go. Right on, guys. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Sorry. Thanks, guys. Thank you, Chris.
President Trump on this IVF development and bringing down those costs with not only right to try, but that favored nation status that has been worked on by HHS with Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and Dr. McCary at FDA. Also, Dr. Mehmet Oz working overtime to make America healthy again, make America great again. And to Bobby Kennedy's points, it's so true that this is a national security issue. As I mentioned earlier, we're at that 1.6% rate of reproduction in this country. We cannot sustain a nation this large until we're over that 2.1% threshold. And as he mentioned, the late, great John F. Kennedy, the 35th president, the uncle of the Secretary of Health and Human Services, back during the 60s, it was at a 3.5% rate. So it's a dream of most people, a dream of most parents, and we're finding infertility for a various amount of reasons, those postponing marriage to also the poisons that are in the nature and in society. But this administration committed to making America healthy again as part of the Make America Great Again banner. Republicans, Democrats, and independents coming together to do just that. So an exciting day, regardless of what side you stand on IVF specifically, but President Trump mentioning that this is as about pro-life as it gets. So we're covering the latest from the Trump White House on this Thursday, October 16th, 2025. And you know what that means? Thursday night is the voice of reason. So join us in roughly an hour and 14 minutes from now. Let not your heart be troubled. More RSBN primetime to come with the voice of reason tonight on a gorgeous evening in Washington, D.C. Also splendid outside here. Auburn, Alabama, the loveliest village on the plains. Thank you for being with us today. For all of my colleagues here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, we will see you at 6 o'clock for the Voice of Reason. I'm Robert McNeely. Always great to be with you at the live desk. Have a wonderful afternoon, and may God bless you and yours.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First News. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed. So join us and be part of the right side of history.
Hey y'all, it's Silk.
from the Diamond and Silk Chit Chat live show. Look, don't forget to check me out right here on RSBN Network. Be sure to watch the show on Right Side Broadcasting Network, and I want you to support Right Side Broadcasting Network. Yes, it's imperative that you do so, okay? I look to see y'all soon. Bye-bye.
allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. You can scan that QR code now, RSBN10. That is the code, easy to remember, for 10% off. This is ivermectin, hydrochloroquine, antibiotics that will save you and yours from bacterial and viral infections, NAD+, and much, much more. 200 essential medications and emergency medical kits, the meds you trust delivered to your door.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we